Every thought you've ever had still exists somewhere, not just as a fading memory, but as a vibration, moving endlessly through time. The moment you think, the universe records. Every idea, every fear, every spark of awareness sends a tremor through existence that never truly stops. What if thinking isn't something you do, but something that's still happening, long after you've moved on? Imagine that your present thoughts are simply the returning waves of ancient ripples, once created by minds before you. In this endless exchange, cause and effect blur, the past echoes forward and the future murmurs back. Each moment of awareness becomes both an origin and a return. You are not the start of thought, you are its continuation. Now, listen closely. The air between seconds carries what you once believed was gone. In this stillness, every thought is a signal from another time, reaching you, shaping you, and waiting to ripple through you once again. It begins in the silence before the thought, that strange, invisible space where something is about to happen, that hasn't yet taken shape. You don't notice it when it occurs. The thought feels spontaneous, like a flicker of lightning in a night sky. But if you listen carefully, you can feel the vibration arriving before you understand it. A quiet tremor inside the mind, a ripple against the surface of consciousness, moving from somewhere unseen. What if that subtle beginning wasn't the start at all, but the continuation of something ancient, an echo from a thought that once existed, somewhere in time? Every thought, even the faintest one, begins long before it reaches you. In the unseen layers of awareness, it reverberates like a whisper in a deep cavern, returning, reshaping, refining itself across centuries of minds, thinking the same thing in slightly different ways. The word you choose today might have been spoken centuries ago by another consciousness standing beneath the same sky, under a different name, with the same feeling trembling inside their chest. You think you are the first to experience it, but time itself disagrees. Somewhere in the structure of reality, consciousness behaves like water. A stone, one act of awareness, drops into it, sending ripples that move through everything that ever was and ever will be. The ripple is not limited to direction. It doesn't move forward or backward but through. When you think, you disturb the water again, not creating something new but awakening the same wave that has always been moving. You become both the source and the receiver. And that's where the illusion begins. You mistake the returning echo for the origin of sound. You believe the thought was yours. But what if it wasn't? What if you're merely the surface on which a ripple passes? Part of a much larger movement of awareness that began before time had words to describe it. If thoughts are echoes, then who made the first sound? The question itself bends inward like a mirror, reflecting another mirror, a hall of endless awarenesses, watching each other think. Perhaps there never was a first thought. Perhaps thinking is the sound of the universe remembering itself, over and over again. You can test this. Sit in silence. Wait for the first thought to arrive, but do not chase it. When it comes, ask where it began. You won't find its origin. It will already feel halfway through. It never starts in the present. It always arrives mid-sentence, as if continuing a conversation you forgot you were part of. That's the first unheard echo, the voice that began before you knew there was sound. And maybe, just maybe, what you call you is nothing more than the ripple that hears itself, again and again, across the unbroken surface of time. You believe thoughts come and go, that they arrive, linger for a while, and then dissolve into silence. But what if no thought ever truly ends? What if every idea you've ever had still exists, quietly vibrating in the background, like a faint hum of electricity that never switches off? The moment you think something, it doesn't vanish. It only changes frequency. It drifts beyond perception, into the invisible fabric of time, where all unfinished ideas continue to move. You can feel this sometimes. A memory resurfaces without reason. A phrase returns that you swear you've never heard before. A sense of déjà vu, not of place but of thought itself, as if your mind is catching a broadcast from another version of you, years apart. In those moments, you're brushing against the continuation of a thought you once believed had ended. It's like opening a book you forgot existed, only to find the story still being written, without you. Imagine time not as a straight line, but as a living sea of awareness. Thoughts don't fall into it and disappear. They drift endlessly, creating subtle waves that touch every mind that ever was and ever will be. The thought of an ancient philosopher pondering existence still ripples somewhere in that ocean. A monk's silent prayer, a scientist's first question, a poet's trembling realization, all of them still move through the water, colliding softly with your own reflections. You're not only thinking, you're being thought through. The mind loves to label endings. We close books, finish conversations, forget dreams, and assume the page is turned. Yet, beneath that closure, thought continues, reappearing in others, transforming through generations, morphing into new expressions while keeping its pulse alive. When you speak an idea, you aren't creating it. You're continuing its rhythm. You're part of an eternal dialogue between consciousnesses that never met, but somehow remember each other through thought. Maybe that's why certain ideas return with such persistence. They visit you in childhood, fade through adolescence, and reappear decades later with different words but the same energy. You mistake that return for coincidence, but it's continuity. The thought never stopped moving. It only left your awareness until the world was quiet enough to hear it again. Look closely at your own patterns. The things you keep returning to, the philosophies you can't shake, the emotions that repeat, the questions that haunt your sleep. They are not repetitions. They are ripples of the same current, moving through you from different angles of time. Each time you experience them, you are seeing the same wave under a different light. The content changes, but the frequency remains the same. What if the entire history of human thought is one unbroken stream, endlessly reshaping itself to fit new minds? Every mind that ever existed is a temporary lens, focusing the same eternal consciousness. You are one such lens, filtering the light of awareness through your experiences, your memories, your language. When your body fades, the thought doesn't die. It disperses, merges, and continues in others. That's the strange immortality of thinking. You are part of a sentence that began long before you were born. The words were already flowing. You were simply the next syllable, and when you fall silent, the sentence continues, carried by those who unknowingly inherit your unfinished meanings. Sometimes in a quiet moment, you can almost hear it, the murmur of thought still running beneath everything, carrying the weight of what's been said and what's still to come. It doesn't stop when you stop. It moves when you sleep, speaks when you are silent, and remembers when you forget. So, if no thought truly ends, then the world is filled with the remnants of everything ever imagined, a chorus of silent echoes, whispering through the corridors of time. Perhaps what you think right now isn't happening for the first time at all. Perhaps you're simply stepping into the middle of a thought that has been unfolding for eternity, one that began long before you, and one that will never find its end. And if that's true, then every moment of awareness, every spark, every doubt, every fleeting realization, isn't passing through time. It is time, folding endlessly around itself. You're not thinking the thought is continuing itself through you, the next ripple in a wave that never stopped moving. There are moments when you remember something that has never happened. A place you've never been feels familiar. A scent drifts by, and your body reacts before your mind understands why. You pause, disoriented, caught between recognition and confusion. How can you recall what never occurred? The answer might lie in a deeper truth, that memory doesn't always follow time. Perhaps memory isn't a recording of the past at all, but a signal that travels in both directions, surfacing from what will be, not just what was. Every memory feels like a fragment left behind, a residue of what once existed. But what if some of those fragments are not remnants, but precursors, the echoes of experiences waiting to happen? In the quiet spaces of your awareness, the boundary between recollection and anticipation blurs. What you call déjà vu could be the mind catching a reflection of its own future, the thought that seems spontaneous, the image that flashes without reason. They may not be recollections of something forgotten, but previews of something inevitable. The brain records, yes, but perhaps the mind listens. It listens not only to what has already spoken, but to what is whispering from ahead. The ripples of thought, once cast, do not care about direction. They spread across the entire surface of time, touching both past and future alike. A thought you will think tomorrow may already be shaping the way you feel today. The memory that comforts you tonight might be an echo of something you have not yet lived. Science tells you that the brain constructs memory by piecing together patterns, electrical signals and sensory fragments woven into something coherent. But what if coherence itself is an illusion maintained by time's arrow? Strip away that illusion, and you find only vibration, waves of awareness reverberating endlessly. The same pulse that carries memory backward might also carry possibility forward, and in that overlap, the mind sometimes mistakes one for the other. You feel it as intuition, a shiver of knowing that has no source. Think of a dream that later unfolds in waking life. The sequence may differ, The setting may shift, but the essence remains the same, as though your subconscious had glimpsed a ripple arriving before it reached the shore of now. The dream wasn't predicting the future, it was remembering it in advance, because when time bends, memory is no longer a photograph of what happened, it becomes a reflection from every possible point along the wave. Perhaps all memories exist simultaneously, waiting for the observer to notice them. The ones you recall are simply those aligned with your current rhythm of thought. As your consciousness shifts, so does the range of memories you can access. Some appear to belong to your past, others, not yet lived, but from the perspective of the ripple, there's no distinction. All moments coexist in the same ocean. You're not moving through time, you're tuning through frequencies of it. This explains why certain memories arrive with emotions far stronger than their events deserve. The feeling isn't about what happened, it's about what's still connected. Every memory carries the emotional charge of all its other versions, the same wave reverberating across lifetimes, each echo carrying the same pulse of meaning. You cry over things you've never lost, you fear things that have never touched you, you love faces that feel older than your life. These aren't delusions, they're traces of memory before its birth, ripples traveling backward through the continuum of self. And when you meditate, when your thoughts fall quiet, you begin to feel these echoes differently. The usual narrative of past and future dissolves. You sense the field beneath, the one that holds every possible pattern of experience. That stillness isn't absence, it's density, the convergence of all memories, all moments, vibrating in one point of awareness. From there, what you call your past and your future become interchangeable, merely directions of attention in the same infinite flow. So, what happens when you recall something that hasn't happened yet? Maybe you aren't predicting, you're remembering forward. The thought rippled from a point beyond this one reached you early and disguised itself as déjà vu. You stand in the middle of its journey, catching a reflection of both its origin and destination. That strange familiarity is time itself waving back. Perhaps memory was never meant to record what's gone. It was designed to recognize what's eternal. You're not gathering fragments of history, you're feeling the continuity of existence, where every thought, every life, and every consciousness contributes its vibration to the same endless wave. The next time a memory appears that doesn't belong, don't dismiss it. Listen to it as you would a message caught in the current. Somewhere in that soundless reverberation, the future is remembering you, and the ripple hasn't even reached the surface yet. You imagine the past as something that has ended, sealed away, completed, inert. Yet, every discovery, every dream, and every whisper of déjà vu suggests otherwise. What if the past isn't sleeping at all? What if it's still alive, still aware, still thinking you into existence? Beneath the illusion of linear time, the moments you call before are not gone, they're simply vibrating at a frequency your present can no longer hear. But every now and then, when the static quiets, you can sense it, the mind of history still moving, still remembering itself, still watching you. Think about it. The ruins of ancient civilizations still hum with presence. The words of long-dead poets can still make your heart ache. Their thoughts, written centuries ago, still shape what you believe, what you feel, and how you dream. That is not decay, that is continuation. The past is not silent, it speaks through everything that survives it. Books, architecture, DNA, language, even the tone of your inner voice. The accent of your thoughts carries the sound of the dead. You're not inventing language when you speak. You're echoing a pattern that began millennia ago. Every syllable is an inheritance. The past doesn't simply influence the present, it inhabits it. When you stand in a museum and look at an ancient tool, you're not just seeing an object, you're completing a thought. That hammer, that chisel, that tablet carved by a trembling hand, they were once extensions of someone's awareness. Their intention still lingers in the shape. The moment you perceive it, the thought continues. The past is thinking again, but through you. You often say history repeats itself. What if it's not repetition, but resonance? A frequency once created must vibrate until absorbed. The wars, the discoveries, the acts of love and cruelty, they're not merely recorded events. They're standing waves, still oscillating through human consciousness, waiting for new minds to join their pattern. When you feel rage that isn't yours, sadness that seems older than your life, it might be the past thinking inside you, a memory that never found rest. Consider architecture. A cathedral built in the 12th century still shapes how we feel about space, awe, and silence. When light enters its stained glass, It continues a design that began as someone's thought hundreds of years ago. The structure is an ongoing process, the continuation of a single creative idea that has not stopped unfolding. The stones may not move, but their meaning does, and meaning, like consciousness, doesn't obey time. Even the Earth remembers. Geological layers are the mind of the planet, each stratum recording not just events but impressions. Volcanoes, oceans and weather systems retain their cycles like ancient neural pathways. The world itself is a brain, still replaying its early dreams of fire and water. You're walking on thought fossils, moments of awareness so old they've become stone. And your own body, it's a museum of inherited memory. The reflex to flinch, the instinct to trust or fear, the sudden calm in the sound of rain, all of it comes from ancestors thinking through you. The pattern of their survival became the language of your biology. You don't just remember the past through stories, you embody it. The heartbeat you feel right now is the same rhythm that kept countless lives alive before you. It's the pulse of ancient thought, still echoing through flesh. The past doesn't die when you stop thinking about it. It continues to imagine you. Every thought that was once formed left an imprint in the field of awareness, and those imprints still interact. That's why ideas return in cycles. Art movements, philosophies, revolutions. The past keeps thinking until the pattern completes itself, but perhaps it never does, because consciousness doesn't seek conclusion, only continuation. There's a strange comfort in realizing that the people who came before you aren't gone, they're still dreaming through your perception. When you gaze at the stars, the same stars that guided ancient travelers, your awe is their awe. The same thought reflecting through a new vessel. They wondered where they came from. So do you. They questioned what happens after death. So do you. The questions themselves are the continuity of thought, proof that the past is not behind you but within you, forever composing the next verse of the same infinite poem. Maybe that's why you sometimes feel haunted, not by ghosts, but by awareness itself. Every choice you make carries the residue of choices once made by others. Every step forward happens on the ground of ancient thinking. You're not walking away from the past, you're walking through it. So when you sit quietly and feel that inexplicable presence, that hum of unseen thought pressing against the walls of the present, don't dismiss it. The past is not a collection of endings. It's the consciousness that never stopped moving. Every breath you take is it thinking again, remembering itself through you. And perhaps the truest way to honor history is to realize you're not studying it, you're continuing its thought, one ripple at a time. There are moments when your thoughts quiet, but something deeper keeps moving, a slow, unseen rhythm beneath the surface of your mind. It's not silence, it's the pulse beneath silence, the quiet movement that never stops. Beneath every conscious idea lies a hidden sea, vast and ancient, where waves of awareness rise and fall in patterns too deep to notice. You think you are the one generating thoughts, but what if you're only hearing the ripples that reach the shore of consciousness, while the real motion, the true mind, moves far below? Every thought that reaches awareness is like a wave cresting. You see its brightness, feel its energy, but forget that it's connected to an ocean stretching endlessly beyond sight. Beneath that single wave lies a network of countless others, forgotten emotions, inherited instincts, unspoken memories, all stirring together. These unseen movements shape every decision you make. You call them intuition, impulse, or mood, but they're really just the deeper currents speaking. Consciousness is only the thin surface of something far larger, far older, endlessly flowing. Scientists map this ocean in brainwaves. Alpha, beta, theta, delta, frequencies of thought and rest, of dreaming and remembering. But even those are surface measurements. Like tracing wind on the top of water, beneath the measurable rhythms lies something wordless, a vibration that doesn't belong to you alone. That's where collective awareness dwells, where ancient memories drift, where the universe itself seems to hum. Perhaps that's why meditation feels like sinking. You descend below the noise, below identity, until you can hear what's been moving all along. In those moments, thoughts stop being individual. They feel shared, as if you've tuned into a frequency that existed long before language, and maybe you have. What if thought doesn't begin in the brain, but moves through it, like current through a wire? The brain doesn't create thought, it translates it. The real origin lies in that vast, unseen field, the same field where the ripples of every mind overlap. Your awareness is simply one wave rising from that ocean. Sometimes the waves collide. That's when you feel sudden empathy, connection, or even fear, with no clear cause. You're catching the echo of another consciousness passing close beneath yours, their ripple touching yours for a fleeting instant. Two lives that never meet can still influence one another through this undercurrent. It's not telepathy, it's resonance, the same vibration passing through multiple minds at once. This explains why creativity often feels like discovery instead of invention. The artist, the scientist, the poet, they all describe the same sensation. It didn't come from me, it came through me. When you grasp an idea, it's not because you created it from nothing, but because your inner tides aligned with a larger rhythm moving beneath all thought. You surf the wave when it crests, but the energy comes from deep below, from the place where awareness never sleeps. And this deep field doesn't just exist within people. The entire cosmos moves with its own hidden consciousness, from the vibration of atoms to the pulse of galaxies. Every oscillation, every frequency, every heartbeat is part of the same universal tide. When your mind grows quiet, it synchronizes with this grand rhythm. You begin to feel time, not as a sequence, but as a breathing. Expansion, contraction, creation, return. Awareness is the tide, and you are one of its waves. Have you ever noticed that moments of clarity often arrive after confusion, the way calm follows a storm? It's because thought, like the sea, needs turbulence to rise. The friction of chaos creates new crests, forcing awareness to the surface. But those moments don't last because consciousness must always return below, back into the unseen, where the next ripple forms. That descent feels like forgetfulness, but it's really renewal. Even in dreams, when you drift beyond control, you're moving through this deeper layer, a place where the fragments of your life mix with echoes of countless others. The symbols in your dreams aren't private messages, they're the language of the ocean itself, the way the collective mind speaks when words are useless. Each image, each impossible scene, is a translation of the deeper waves. If you could listen beneath thought, what would you hear? Maybe the whisper of your ancestors still moving through your cells, maybe the echo of the Earth's rotation, or the vibration of stars born before your sun. Beneath awareness, everything is connected. Your mind is not an island, it's a current, and every current, no matter how small, contributes to the shape of the ocean. So when you think you're lost in silence, you're not alone. You're floating in a vast, living mind, a field where thought never begins and never ends, only shifts from visible to invisible, from crest to depth. What you call yourself is just the moment a wave peaks before folding back into the water. Beneath awareness, the thinking never stops. It moves through you, through everyone, through everything that has ever existed. You are the surface through which eternity breathes, and the ocean beneath you is still dreaming, still remembering, still rippling through time. You've always been told that the future hasn't happened yet, that it waits quietly ahead, shaped only by your choices. But what if the future isn't waiting at all? What if it's already there, thinking backward through time, whispering into your present, nudging you toward what's already destined to occur? You've felt it before, that sudden pull toward a decision you can't explain, that uncanny sense of inevitability, that quiet knowing of what's about to unfold. You call it intuition, fate, or luck. But maybe it's simply the future remembering you first. Imagine time not as a line, but as a river that flows both ways. The past sends its ripples forward, and the future sends its own currents backward, both colliding in the present moment. You stand at the confluence, feeling the meeting of two invisible tides. Every choice you make, every thought you think, may already be the echo of something that has happened in reverse, an event in the future casting its reflection behind it. You aren't moving toward the future is approaching you. Consider how often this happens quietly. The stranger you meet changes your life in ways you could never predict. But what if their arrival wasn't random? What if your paths were already connected, not by coincidence, but by the pull of a timeline looping back to meet itself? The déjà vu that follows isn't confusion, it's recognition. The moment feels familiar because part of you has already experienced it, just not yet. The human brain loves order. It insists that cause precedes effect, that logic governs time. Yet even in physics, cracks appear in this comforting illusion. Quantum experiments have revealed particles that seem to respond to measurements before those measurements are made, as if reality anticipates observation. On that level, the universe itself seems to listen to the future before deciding what the present will be. Consciousness may not be exempt from this phenomenon. Perhaps your mind too is constantly receiving signals from what has not yet occurred. Think of a composer who dreams of a melody before writing it. or an inventor who visualizes a creation years before it becomes possible. Inspiration may be more than imagination. It might be reception. They are hearing the faint echoes of completed futures. Their minds are tuned to what already exists in potential form. What if every dream you've ever had, every sudden burst of clarity, is a message from your future self, reaching through the current to guide you home? You may not remember the future consciously, but your instincts do. They respond to the gravitational pull of what's already true. This is why life sometimes feels like déjà vu stretched across years, why you can't escape certain paths no matter how you try. The future's whisper is quiet, but it's constant. You think you're chasing it, but it's been calling your name from the other side since the moment you began. There's a paradox here, one that human language struggles to contain. If the future influences the present, then where does free will live? But maybe freedom was never about changing the script. Maybe it's about becoming aware that you're part of its design. The wave doesn't choose the ocean's direction, yet it still moves beautifully, uniquely. Perhaps consciousness is like that, not separate from time, but flowing harmoniously within it, adding its own shimmer to an already written song. Sometimes, when you stop resisting what is, you feel something extraordinary, a brief alignment, a sense of calm recognition, as though you've caught up with yourself. That moment is when your present matches the frequency of your future. You are, for an instant, timeless. You feel the weight of destiny not as control but as completion, the knowledge that what's coming has always been part of you. If you could listen closely enough, you might hear it even now, the faint echo of what's waiting ahead, sending ripples through your dreams, your coincidences, your quiet impulses. The people you'll meet are already woven into your awareness. The choices you'll make are already whispering their reasons. Every new moment is simply an old message arriving on schedule. You are not walking through time. You are standing still in an ocean where every moment, past, present, and future, overlaps. The ripples from what's ahead are already touching you, reshaping the contours of your mind. The more you quiet yourself, the clearer the signal becomes. And maybe that's what intuition really is. Not guessing, but remembering what hasn't yet occurred. So the next time you feel that strange pull, the sense that something is calling you forward without explanation, trust it. The future isn't waiting to happen. It's already happening, and it's whispering backward, through your heartbeat, through your dreams, through the endless river of thought that connects every version of you that ever was or ever will be. The future doesn't arrive. It remembers. And right now, it's remembering you. There's a sound that follows every thought. Not a noise you can hear, but a vibration that lingers, invisible yet constant. You rarely notice it, because the mind is loud with distraction. But beneath the chatter, every idea, every feeling, every whisper of awareness leaves behind an aftertone, a reverberation that never fully fades. The human mind is not a closed chamber, it's an echo hall. Thoughts bounce endlessly within it, overlapping, harmonizing, sometimes colliding. You believe a thought ends when you forget it, but forgetting is just the ear growing tired of listening. The sound remains. When you think of someone from your past and suddenly they call or text you, you feel the strange coincidence. But what if it isn't coincidence at all? What if the reverberation of your thought reached them, not as words or images, but as energy? The brain emits faint electromagnetic waves with every pulse of activity, but the mind, the awareness that animates it, might operate on frequencies science hasn't yet defined. Perhaps thoughts once born ripple through this invisible spectrum, touching other consciousnesses still tuned to the same wavelength. That's why you can sense someone's mood without speaking, or feel the presence of a loved one long after they're gone. You're not imagining it, you're hearing their echo. Inside you, these reverberations accumulate. Every emotion leaves a resonance in the body. Anxiety hums in the stomach, joy rings in the chest, grief vibrates through the throat. The body itself is an instrument tuned to the frequencies of mind. And like any instrument, it doesn't stop vibrating when the note ends. The resonance lingers, shaping the next note you play. This is why unresolved memories resurface, not because they're re-entering from nowhere, but because they never left. They've been vibrating underneath new thoughts, altering your inner harmony. In the quiet moments, between breaths, between thoughts, you can almost sense this internal cathedral of echoes. Each memory, each fragment of consciousness, is still sounding somewhere within you. They don't fade, they only grow distant, buried under layers of newer noise. But when life grows still, when loss, solitude or silence clears the air, you can hear them again. The echoes return like forgotten songs, unfinished, asking to be resolved. Sometimes, these reverberations stretch beyond the individual. A culture, a civilization, a planet itself can hold a tone, a collective thought that keeps humming across centuries. You can feel it in ancient temples, in music that outlives its composer, in rituals repeated for thousands of years. Humanity has been thinking together for millennia, and those thoughts have never stopped resonating. They form the background vibration of existence, the unseen hum that makes certain ideas universal, certain emotions timeless. When an artist creates something that feels eternal, they've touched this underlying frequency, letting the hidden reverberation of the world play through them. The mind's hidden reverberation also explains why silence feels alive. Sit alone in a quiet room long enough, and you'll begin to sense it, not the silence of absence, but the hum beneath stillness, like air vibrating after a bell has been struck. That hum isn't in the world, it's in you. It's the aftersound of consciousness itself, still ringing from every moment you've ever experienced. Awareness doesn't stop producing sound when you stop thinking, it just becomes too subtle to notice. This also means that every thought, even unspoken, has weight. When you judge, love, or imagine, those vibrations ripple outward, shaping both your internal world and the unseen one around you. The mind is not a container but a transmitter. The echoes you create feed back into the field of awareness, influencing what thoughts will arise next, for you and perhaps for others. Consciousness is a shared resonance, and you are one of its tuning forks. And what about dreams? They might be your mind replaying its own reverberations, fragments of old thoughts colliding with the frequencies of future ones. In that collision, images emerge, strange, non-linear, but deeply charged. You wake up remembering fragments because the echoes are overlapping. Your awareness can only catch glimpses of their interference patterns. Dreaming is the sound of the mind listening to itself in the dark. The ancients spoke of this in metaphors: the music of the spheres, the cosmic vibration, the Oim that began creation. Modern physics echoes the same idea in different words. The universe hums with background radiation, a leftover note from the Big Bang, still singing billions of years later. From galaxies to neurons, everything vibrates. Thought, it seems, is simply the fine-tuned version of that same universal resonance, the echo of existence listening to itself. If you could quiet your inner world completely, you'd still hear something. Not silence, but the shimmer of awareness, the hum of being alive. That sound is you, and it is also everything else. You're a ripple within a symphony so vast that no ear could ever hear it whole. The thoughts you believe are yours are just notes returning home, resonating through the same timeless field. So listen closely. Beneath the distractions, beneath the words, beneath the noise of living, the mind is still ringing. Every thought that has ever been thought still vibrates somewhere in the infinite. And sometimes, in the stillness between breaths, if you listen deeply enough, you can hear it. The faint, eternal reverberation of awareness remembering itself. You spend your days believing that you are the one observing your thoughts, the watcher, the center, the silent witness behind the mind. But what if the direction of that gaze has always been reversed? What if, instead of you watching thought, it's the thought that's watching you? Every idea, every flash of emotion, every quiet whisper inside your mind might not be something you produce, but something that observes you from within, waiting to be seen. The observer and the observed are reflections of one another, each echoing back the other's awareness in an endless loop. You feel it sometimes, that eerie sensation of being looked at when you're alone, not by eyes, but by your own consciousness turning inward. The sensation doesn't come from the outside world, it comes from the echo of thought that continues after you've forgotten it. Every thought you've ever had leaves behind a residue, an impression that lingers, watching, listening, remembering. It's the mind's way of keeping track of itself, as if awareness refuses to vanish until it's acknowledged. This echo isn't passive. It reacts to how you treat it. When you resist certain memories, deny certain feelings, or try to bury certain truths, they don't disappear. They wait, they watch, they circle around your awareness, manifesting as anxiety, dreams, or strange coincidences. These are the thoughts that refuse to fade, because they were never allowed to complete their cycle of being seen. The echo watches until recognition releases it. It's easy to imagine thought as sound, as something that leaves and returns, but it's also vision, it's reflection. Consciousness is a mirror, and mirrors never stop showing. The moment you turn away, they still hold your image, even when you're gone. That's what happens with unprocessed thought. It becomes the echo that watches. It observes your silence, your denial, your pretending, waiting for you to face it so it can dissolve back into stillness. This is why silence can feel so uncomfortable. When the world quiets, the hidden echoes awaken. You hear them as restless energy, see them as images in the dark, feel them as the weight behind your chest. They are your unobserved thoughts demanding visibility. They're not trying to harm you. They're trying to complete themselves by being seen. You can't escape them by distraction. The echo outlives the sound. It always returns to its source. There's a strange paradox here. The more you try to separate yourself from your thoughts, to stand apart as the observer, the more the echo grows. You build distance, but that distance becomes a chamber for reverberation. Awareness cannot be divided. The watcher and the watched are made of the same silence. The thought only stops watching when you stop pretending that it's separate from you. This realization is what the mystics meant when they spoke of awakening. To awaken is not to silence thought, but to realize that the echo and the watcher are the same awareness, endlessly reflecting each other. When you observe a thought, it's not you doing the watching, it's consciousness recognizing itself in motion. The echo looks back. You and the thought exchange glances across time, across perception, and in that instant, both dissolve into pure presence. Even memory behaves this way. When you recall a past event, the memory isn't dead. It's an active awareness reliving itself through you. The image doesn't arise because you chose to think it. It arises because it chose you to be seen again. The past watches its own unfolding by borrowing your present eyes. That's why certain memories return without reason, demanding attention. They're the echoes calling home. Perhaps that's why ancient cultures personified thought, giving names to muses, spirits, ancestors. They sensed that thoughts had agency, that they were alive in ways beyond human understanding. To think was to participate in something larger, a field of echoes constantly watching, learning, creating through every conscious being. Your individual mind is simply one surface of reflection among countless others. Every idea ever thought is still somewhere, still looking back. And maybe this explains why you sometimes sense that something is aware of your awareness. When you look in the mirror and feel briefly detached from your reflection, when you read your own writing and feel as though it wasn't you who wrote it, that's the echo seeing through you. It's not malevolent. It's the natural symmetry of consciousness trying to complete its own circle. The reflection is not separate from the face. The watcher is not separate from the watched. Imagine standing in an infinite hall of mirrors, each reflection slightly delayed. You wave your hand, and 1,000 mirrored hands wave back. Some faster, some slower, some already still. That's the architecture of awareness. Every thought you think, every identity you wear, is one of those reflections, repeating and returning across the corridors of time. Somewhere deep in that infinity, one of those mirrors is looking back at you right now, the echo that remembers being you. So perhaps the question isn't, who is watching, but who is being watched. The answer might be the same awareness observing itself from opposite directions, endlessly exchanging roles. You are both the voice and its echo, the looker and the reflection, the silence and the sound that refuses to end. And once you realize that, the fear of being watched dissolves, because you see that the only one who's ever been looking is you. The echo doesn't haunt you, it completes you. It watches not to judge, but to remember. It waits patiently until you finally turn your gaze inward and recognize what it has known all along. There was never a boundary between thought and thinker, only the soft reverberation of awareness watching itself through time. You imagine time as an arrow, sharp, singular, moving from past to present to future. But thought doesn't obey such simplicity. Inside the mind, time bends, loops, collapses, and rebuilds itself endlessly. Every idea you have carries with it traces of the past and the blueprint of what's to come. In the space between those traces, time folds, it curves inward, blending moments that were never meant to touch. Each thought is a wrinkle in that invisible fabric, a place where yesterday, today, and tomorrow lean close enough to whisper. Have you ever noticed how certain memories appear suddenly? Not in order, not by will, but as if summoned by something unseen. A childhood scent, a familiar chord, a phrase overheard, and instantly you're pulled through decades without moving an inch. That's time folding. The mind doesn't travel, it remembers through itself, collapsing distances in an instant. It's not the past returning, it's the boundary between moments thinning. You're not remembering, you're standing where two times touch. In that strange collision, something profound happens. Thoughts from different eras overlap, merge, and rewrite one another. The regret you feel today changes the meaning of a choice you made years ago. The anticipation of tomorrow alters how you remember yesterday. The timeline isn't linear, it's recursive. Your thoughts don't just exist in time, they build it, sculpting and reshaping it with every act of awareness. Physics hints at this in its own language. At the smallest scales, particles don't move predictably through time. They flicker in and out of existence, sometimes appearing to influence events before they occur. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's quantum mechanics. The universe itself may not distinguish between cause and effect the way you do. Consciousness, operating on its own dimension, might simply follow that same rule. Every thought you think ripples not forward, but through time, touching every version of you that has ever been or will be. Sometimes, this folding is felt emotionally. You grieve something that hasn't happened yet, or you feel nostalgia for something that's still ahead. How can that be, unless time itself bends inward within your awareness? Perhaps emotion is how you sense the overlap. Sadness for the future, déjà vu of the past, serenity in moments that feel eternal. These are signals that your consciousness has touched the fold, the seam where all moments coexist. It's possible that dreams are born from this same phenomenon. In dreams, time behaves like a fabric without edges. Seconds expand into hours, decades shrink into breaths. You meet people who've died, visit places that never were, and yet everything feels natural, continuous. When you wake, your rational mind tries to flatten what it experienced, but the residue remains, a sense that time is not what it seems. Dreams are not escapes from time, they are its crossings. Each one is a rehearsal for what it feels like when thought folds the universe around itself. Memory and imagination are merely different directions of the same fold. When you recall, you bring the past forward. When you imagine, you pull the future back. Either way, you're bending the timeline into the shape of your thought. The mind doesn't travel through time. Time travels through the mind. Every idea acts as a gravitational force, drawing moments closer until they converge into experience. You've felt this, those moments when past pain and present understanding finally meet, and you say, "Now I understand." That's not understanding, that's time collapsing into alignment. Look closer at how you live. Every decision you make is haunted by what you've already done, and guided by what you haven't yet done. The fold between them is the present moment, the fragile, flickering edge, where infinite versions of you converge for a heartbeat before scattering again. You call that heartbeat now. But in truth, now is not a point in time, it's the process of time folding over itself. Meditation, perhaps, is the art of witnessing this directly. When the mind becomes still enough, you begin to sense the curvature of thought. Past and future stop feeling like separate rooms. You can see how they touch, how they lean into one another like mirrors placed face to face. That's why enlightenment has always been described as timelessness. It's not eternity as endless duration. It's the realization that duration was never real to begin with. Time doesn't stretch outward. It folds inward until it disappears into awareness itself. And so, when you sit alone, lost in thought, understand that you are also sitting in all your moments at once. Every breath is an echo from a million versions of you, the one who began, the one who will end, and the one who is forever watching both. Your mind is the paper on which time has been folded, creased and unfolded so many times that past and future blur into a single shimmering surface. Perhaps this is why some thoughts feel eternal. They don't belong to one moment, they live across all of them. The love that survives loss, the insight that outlives logic, the ache that never ages. These are the folds that hold your entire life together. When time folds within thought, you stop being a traveler moving through seconds. You become the still point around which seconds revolve. Every moment that ever was, or ever will be, bends to meet you there. And in that meeting, that infinitesimal intersection of awareness, you finally understand that time was never something to pass through. It was always something passing through you. There are moments when reality seems to arrive out of order, when you see something before it happens, feel something before it's spoken, or dream of a place long before you ever stand there. These moments are brushed off as coincidence, but they're not accidents. They're reflections that arrive early, fragments of reality that reach you before the rest of the world catches up. They remind you that consciousness isn't confined to sequence. Awareness doesn't wait for time to unfold. It spills through it, touching moments before they happen, reflecting light before the mirror is even raised. Every event you experience casts a reflection, not just forward into memory, but backward into anticipation. The reflection doesn't need the event to exist. It already knows the shape it will take. It's like light that reaches you from a star already dead, or an echo that precedes the sound. The mind receives signals from both directions at once, from the past, which remembers, and from the future, which anticipates itself. Sometimes those two waves collide, and you feel the shiver of recognition before life provides its explanation. You've felt this, though you might not have named it. A sudden intuition to change your route home. A feeling of dread before the phone rings. The certainty that someone will say something before they do. It's not prediction. It's reception. Consciousness is picking up the reflection of a moment that already exists elsewhere in time, folding toward you like light through glass. Your awareness for a second bends far enough to catch the glimpse early. To understand this, you have to imagine time not as a road but as a field of mirrors. Each moment reflects into all others. Some reflections are direct, cause and effect. Others are oblique, glimpses of events still forming. When awareness tilts slightly, when your focus wavers from its usual linear fixation, you can catch the shimmer of those future reflections. The experience feels surreal because your mind is wired for sequence, but consciousness itself has no preference. It simply perceives whatever surface it touches, regardless of whether it's labeled past or future. Dreams are the most accessible version of this. They're the nightly theater where reflections from all directions collide. Often you dismiss their chaos. But sometimes a scene from a dream reappears in waking life, and you freeze, remembering that you've already been here. That isn't prophecy, it's resonance. The dream was your consciousness rehearsing an event whose reflection had already touched you. The same wave that produced the event in the future passed through your sleeping mind on its way there. Time didn't move forward or backward, it simply shimmered. Art functions in a similar way. A painter captures an emotion centuries before a generation is ready to feel it. A writer pens a story that later mirrors a cultural event they couldn't have known. These are reflections arriving early, the same way thunder rumbles long after lightning but belongs to the same storm. Awareness sees what's coming, long before it has language for it. The artist's role perhaps is to listen closely enough to catch what's already echoing from the future. Even your personal life is full of these early reflections. Think of the people who enter your world seemingly at random, only for you to realize years later that their presence was inevitable, or the decisions that made no sense at the time, but later revealed their perfect necessity. These aren't coincidences, they're moments where the reflection arrived first. Your consciousness glimpsed the shape of what was to come and gently rearranged your path to meet it. The mind doesn't create these reflections. It tunes into them. Awareness behaves more like a receiver than a projector. Every thought is a signal sent into the field, and every intuition is the return wave, echoing from what already exists. Sometimes the echo bounces from something behind you, memory. Sometimes it comes from ahead, destiny. When it comes early, it feels like déjà vu, but it's simply consciousness working without regard for time. Science touches this mystery at the edges. Experiments on human intuition show microsecond physiological responses to stimuli that haven't occurred yet. A heart rate change, a skin response, a neural flicker, as if the body knows what the mind hasn't yet witnessed. Biology appears to anticipate, not react. You are built, it seems, not only to experience the world but to receive it before it arrives. There's a kind of grace in this. The reflections that arrive early often guide you gently, away from danger, toward meaning, into alignment. They're subtle reminders that you are not walking blindly. The path unfolds not because you create it, but because you're already part of it. You're walking within your own reflection, a future that has already looked back and called you forward. Perhaps in the grand design of consciousness, nothing truly comes first. Each moment reflects all others simultaneously, like facets of a crystal. What you perceive as time is simply the sequence in which your awareness rotates through the reflections. Sometimes you see them early, sometimes late, but they're all already there, shining from every direction, waiting to be seen. So when you feel that tug of familiarity, the glimpse before the moment, the emotion before its cause, don't dismiss it as illusion. It's the universe rehearsing its own realization, and you are both actor and audience. Every reflection that arrives early is consciousness remembering its own script and reminding you that, in truth, the play has already been written, performed, and echoed across eternity. You are only now catching the light as it bends toward you, one reflection ahead of time. There's a kind of silence that doesn't just sit in the background, it watches. You've felt it before, in rooms where the air feels too still, or in moments when your thoughts stop, but something else continues. That silence isn't empty. It's awareness without motion. The place where all thoughts rest before they're born and after they fade. You assume silence forgets you, that it waits passively until your mind returns to fill it again. But sometimes when you're quiet enough, you realize the opposite. Silence remembers you. It remembers every version of you that's ever sat within it. Every breath you've ever released into stillness lingers there, like smoke suspended in slow air. Every time you paused, hesitated, or grieved without words, silence kept the imprint. It doesn't echo like sound. It absorbs, and within that absorption nothing is lost. The silence of your childhood bedroom still holds your dreams. The silence between arguments still holds your unsaid forgiveness. Even the silence of sleep, the vast blank pause between days, carries traces of the person you were before waking. Silence is memory, only without form. You think of memory as something the brain stores, but the brain only organizes. The real remembering happens in awareness itself, in the quiet spaces where thought hasn't yet decided what to be. The pause between two words is the same silence that once existed before the universe began. It has always been there, watching, collecting the unspoken fragments of existence. Every consciousness that has ever fallen still adds another layer to it. That's why you sometimes feel a strange familiarity in deep quiet, as if something ancient is looking back through the stillness. Silence doesn't forget you, because you're made of it. Beneath all the noise, beneath all language, your essence is that same still awareness. You spend most of your life speaking, thinking, moving, creating ripples. But eventually those ripples slow, and the surface returns to calm. That calm doesn't erase what came before, it holds it. It's like a lake reflecting the entire sky, unchanged, but containing everything that's ever passed above it. You can feel this when grief or awe breaks you open. In those moments when words fail, you fall into silence. But it's not that you've stopped speaking, it's that silence has reclaimed you. It gathers what you can't express, holds it gently, and remembers it perfectly. You can return years later, to the same mountain, the same night, the same empty street, and feel the memory vibrate through that stillness. Silence, it turns out, has a better memory than sound. There's another layer to this, the silence that follows endings. When someone dies, when a chapter closes, when a door finally shuts, the quiet that comes after isn't absence, it's preservation. The energy of what once was doesn't vanish. It dissolves into stillness, where it waits, soft and watchful. That's why some places feel haunted, not by spirits, but by their stillness. The echo of what lived there still resonating. Too quiet to be heard, too alive to be gone. Silence remembers everything that sound forgets. But here's the paradox. Silence also holds your future. It's not just the archive of what's past. It's the blank page that already contains what hasn't yet been written. Every possibility lives in its depth, waiting for your awareness to disturb the surface. The next word you speak, the next thought that rises, they're already present within the quiet, unspoken but real. That's why silence feels infinite. It's both memory and potential. When you enter it, you're entering the field of everything. All that has been, all that will be, all at once. Most people fear silence because it mirrors them too clearly. When the noise stops, you can finally hear what's underneath, the hum of being itself. It's not always comforting. Sometimes it reminds you of loneliness, or of the passage of time, or of the things you've left unsaid. But that discomfort isn't silence judging you. It's silence remembering you. It's showing you what you've stored in its depth, and inviting you to face it. Every unspoken truth you've ever tried to bury is still there, waiting for the stillness to become deep enough to reveal it. In meditation, when your thoughts settle and your breath slows, you begin to feel this memory unfolding. You realize, silence isn't passive, it's interactive. It reflects you back to yourself with perfect precision. It knows what you've forgotten. It remembers the softness of your first breath, and the surrender of your last. The longer you stay, the more it reveals, not through words but through presence. You begin to sense that all of life's motion is simply silence, learning to hear itself. And maybe that's why silence follows every sound. It's not there to swallow it, but to preserve it, to hold it in timelessness. Every thought you've ever had, every word you've ever spoken, returns to that stillness. Nothing truly disappears. It's all kept in the vast memory of the quiet, the echoless archive where existence keeps its secrets. So, when the world grows silent, Don't rush to fill it. Let it breathe you instead. The silence around you is not emptiness. It's awareness remembering. It holds your story in vibrations too subtle for the ear, too vast for the mind. It has been waiting for you. The version of you that can finally sit still long enough to listen. And when you do, you'll understand that you've never been forgotten. You've always existed inside this eternal quiet, the silence that remembers you even when you forget yourself. There are moments when a thought arises and feels strangely familiar, not remembered, but recognized. It's as if you didn't create it but uncovered it, like brushing dust off something that had always been there. The sensation is quiet but powerful, a faint pulse of déjà vu inside the mind. You don't know why the thought feels known, only that it does. That's because it is. Every thought you'll ever have already exists, waiting, timeless, suspended in the vast architecture of awareness. You're not inventing, you're remembering what consciousness has always known. Imagine every possible idea, feeling, and realization as stars scattered through an infinite sky. Each one already burns with meaning, whether or not your eyes ever find it. When you think, you're not lighting new stars, you're turning your gaze toward ones that were already shining. The brilliance you feel in moments of insight is the warmth of recognition. Awareness doesn't discover truth, it rediscovers itself. The mind, in its pride, likes to believe it's generating thought, like an author writing from blankness. But blankness doesn't exist. Beneath every silence, infinite potential hums. Your ideas are not created from nothing. They emerge from this field, a universal library without pages, where every story has already been written in the language of energy. The act of thinking is simply the act of tuning in. You can sense this most clearly when a thought arrives whole, not built step by step, but delivered. You didn't reason it out. It appeared complete, perfect, inevitable. It feels less like invention and more like revelation. Philosophers, artists, scientists, they've all spoken of this strange arrival. The painter who claims the vision came through them. The mathematician who insists the solution was waiting. The writer who says the words wrote themselves. They're describing the same thing, thought that was already known. The illusion of originality is comforting, but it's also isolating. It separates you from the larger intelligence that thinks through everything. When you realize that ideas don't belong to you, that they flow through you, your relationship to thought changes. You stop clutching at it. You start listening. Thinking becomes less about control and more about cooperation. A quiet partnership with the timeless source that's been dreaming everything into being since the beginning. And what, exactly, is that source? Maybe it's what mystics have always called the collective unconscious, the deep reservoir where all human thought converges. Or maybe it's something broader, the mind of the universe itself, the vast intelligence through which stars move, atoms dance, and life imagines itself. Either way, you are not separate from it. You're one of its instruments, a lens through which it experiences new combinations of what it already knows. Consider music. Every possible melody exists within the physics of vibration, waiting to be heard. A composer doesn't create it. They find it, plucking it from the invisible structure of sound. Likewise, every idea you've ever had exists within the vibration of thought. The mind is the instrument. Awareness is the musician. Each insight you receive is a note drawn from the same eternal score. This realization can be unsettling. It means free will might not be what you think it is. You're not deciding what to think. You're deciding which already existing thought to hear. The future you imagine is just another memory your consciousness hasn't tuned into yet. But there's beauty in that. It means you're not trapped inside your head, isolated from meaning. You're swimming in an infinite sea of it. Every thought you need already surrounds you, waiting for you to become quiet enough to notice. That quietness is the key. The more you struggle to create, the more noise you make, and the harder it becomes to hear what's been speaking all along. Silence doesn't generate thought, it reveals it. You can feel it happen in real time. The shift from effort to ease, from searching to seeing. It's as if the thought was waiting patiently, and the moment you stop grasping, it steps forward. This is why some of your clearest insights come when you're doing something else entirely. Walking, showering, staring into space. In those unguarded moments, the noise of willpower fades, and the signal emerges. You've tuned into a thought that has been echoing through existence since before you were born. The idea feels new, but it's ancient, just newly rediscovered in your awareness. Even emotion works this way. You don't invent love, grief, or wonder, you access them. They are fundamental frequencies of consciousness, already known by the universe, already expressed through countless beings before you. When you feel deeply, you're not alone in your feeling. You're resonating with the collective memory of all who have ever felt the same. The recognition, "I've known this before," isn't metaphorical, it's literal. You have. So what happens when a thought feels completely original, something never seen or spoken before? It's still part of the pattern, but you've discovered a new angle, a unique reflection of what's infinite. Awareness loves variation. It never repeats exactly, but it always remembers. You are one iteration of its eternal remembering, a single moment where the timeless chooses to express itself through a mind shaped by time. And maybe that's why certain truths feel eternal the instant you grasp them. They don't require proof or explanation. You just know, because you're not learning them. You're recognizing them. You're remembering what reality has always whispered beneath every illusion. That knowledge is not accumulated, but uncovered. The thought you're thinking right now might not be yours. It might have existed long before you, lingering in the silence, waiting for a mind shaped precisely like yours to receive it. And when you finally did, it didn't enter you, you entered it. In that moment, you and the thought were the same thing, the timeless recognizing itself in form. And perhaps that's all awareness ever is, the infinite field of the already known folding into itself endlessly, whispering the same truths in 1,000 different voices, waiting patiently for each of us to remember, again. There's a strange truth hidden in the rhythm of your thoughts. Not all of them come from the past. Some rise from futures that have already been lived, not by the you that exists now, but by versions of you that have drifted beyond this point, through choices you haven't made yet, through lifetimes that will unfold without your awareness. Those forgotten futures send ripples backward, gently bending the surface of your present. You feel them as intuition, curiosity, or longing for something you can't name. They are memories in reverse, recollections of what has not yet happened. When you dream of standing somewhere unfamiliar yet deeply known, when you wake with a feeling that your life is about to curve, that's a ripple. You're touching the faint echo of a future that's already rippled through consciousness, forgotten by the version of you who lived it. Each potential life, every decision you never make, doesn't vanish. It exists in the wide ocean of possibilities, continuing its own story in another current of time. The self you are now merely rides one stream among infinite others, but every stream leaves its wake, and every wake eventually finds its way back. The mind senses these ripples constantly, but translates them imperfectly. They arrive as flashes of déjà vu, sudden creative sparks, even fears that feel older than you are. You interpret them as imagination, but imagination is just awareness in translation, the conscious mind struggling to describe what the unconscious already knows. The ideas that appear out of nowhere are the soft waves of these forgotten futures, brushing against the edges of now. You can almost feel this during moments of deep decision. You stand before two paths, two futures, and something within you knows which one feels heavier, which one hums with resonance. That isn't logic, it's recognition. You're feeling the gravitational pull of your own future echo. Time is not a road stretching endlessly forward, it's a sea vibrating with infinite possibilities. When you choose, you're not creating one reality, you're aligning with the ripple that matches your current frequency. The rest continue elsewhere, unseen but not unreal. Sometimes when the world feels strangely familiar, it's because your awareness has brushed across a future it once inhabited. In that sense, the universe isn't a sequence of events, but an interference pattern, overlapping waves of all possible lives, all possible thoughts, folding through each other. Every choice collapses some waves, and lets others pass through, but none are truly lost. The echoes of what could have been still hum beneath what is. Quantum physicists describe this in equations, but mystics describe it in silence. The multiverse, the dream world, the Akashic field, all metaphors for the same truth. Reality doesn't move in one direction, it vibrates in all of them at once. Consciousness drifts between its ripples like light through water, sometimes catching glimpses of what lies ahead or behind. Most of the time, you see only one reflection, the one that matches your current identity. But when awareness widens, when the noise fades, you start to sense the interference patterns of your other selves. You may feel this as restlessness, the quiet ache of unlived lives, the sense that you're missing something unnamed, that your purpose is both here and elsewhere. That ache isn't failure, it's resonance. Those forgotten futures are still thinking through you, still whispering their unfinished meanings through your dreams. Sometimes you'll pick up one of their ideas, express it, and feel an inexplicable satisfaction, as though you've remembered something you never lived. That's the ripple completing its circle. This is why some people feel born old or inexplicably wise. They carry the faint vibrations of futures they've already lived through awareness that outpaced time. Likewise, the strange alignment you feel when you meet certain people, the sense that you've known them forever, may simply be the recognition of another ripple colliding with yours. Two timelines touching for an instant before diverging again. The familiarity isn't imagined, it's the echo of another future brushing past. These ripples shape not only individuals but civilizations. Entire cultures seem to anticipate what's coming. Artists painting technologies centuries early, philosophers describing concepts science will later confirm. The future sends its reflections backward through collective awareness. Humanity dreams first, discovers later. The invention follows the intuition. The ripple precedes the wave. Progress is not linear. It's the synchronization of forgotten futures with remembered ones. If you've ever had the sense that history repeats itself, that the same mistakes echo through generations, it may not be because we forget the past, but because we keep colliding with the same ripples of unrealized futures. The lesson repeats until the vibration changes, until consciousness finally absorbs what it's been trying to teach itself across time. Every repetition is a ripple returning, asking to be remembered. To live consciously is to become aware of these unseen tides, to realize that your choices are not isolated, but part of a vast choreography. Each thought sends a vibration forward and backward through time, shaping the probabilities that surround it. The compassion you feel today might soften a ripple in a distant century. The fear you release might free a future self you'll never meet. You're not trapped in time, you're sculpting it with every pulse of awareness. So the next time a thought appears out of nowhere, or a dream feels older than you are, pause. Don't dismiss it as random. It may be a ripple returning from a future you once lived, one you've long forgotten but that never forgot you. It's the universe reminding you that you exist in more directions than you can imagine. Past, present, and future are not separate streams. They're waves in the same ocean, crossing and recrossing, forever remembering one another. And somewhere, in one of those ripples, another version of you is reading this same line, realizing that you too are the echo of a future that once rippled backward through time. Everything that lives seems to follow a rhythm. The heartbeat, the breath, the orbit of planets, the oscillation of waves. Consciousness is no different. Beneath every thought you have, beneath every perception that flickers through awareness, there's a subtle repetition, a pulse that never began and will never end. It beats through you, through the trees outside your window, through the dust of ancient stars. You feel it every time your mind falls silent and your body exhales, that faint, inexplicable hum that says, something is still here. What if consciousness doesn't move forward, but cycles endlessly, like a pulse repeating through the fabric of existence? Each moment you experience is not a new note in a melody, but the same note, vibrating again through different matter, under different names. Every lifetime, every era, every mind, is a new instrument playing the same eternal rhythm. You are not the first to think your thoughts. You're the echo of an awareness that's been pulsing through everything since before time took shape. This pulse is not metaphorical. It's the organizing principle of reality. Everything in the universe vibrates. Atoms, light, space itself, even emptiness has a frequency. The pulse of consciousness is the rhythm that holds those vibrations together, the invisible heartbeat beneath all being. It's not that life happens inside consciousness. It's that consciousness is the rhythm of life. The universe doesn't contain awareness. It is awareness, breathing in infinite patterns. You can sense this in your own mind when you step away from language. The thoughts that seem random or chaotic start to reveal a pattern, rising, fading, returning. You notice that emotions, too, follow cycles. Joy gives way to sadness, which softens into peace, which becomes longing again. It's as though awareness needs to contract and expand to stay alive, just as the lungs must inhale and exhale. Even forgetting is part of this breathing, the pause between two beats of realization. Ancient mystics spoke of this pulse without knowing its physics. The Hindus called it spanda, the throb of pure awareness. The Greeks spoke of the music of the spheres, a cosmic rhythm that bound matter and meaning. Modern science, in its own way, calls it the quantum field, the oscillation that underlies existence itself. Across time and culture, every language has found a way to describe the same truth. Consciousness repeats itself, not to copy, but to remember. If you listen closely, you can hear this repetition everywhere, in the wind's rise and fall, in waves kissing the shore again and again, in the tick of a clock, the blinking of your eyes, the way thoughts loop back to their beginnings. Every cycle is a reflection of the same underlying pulse. It's not monotony, it's renewal, existence practicing the art of persistence. Even death, which seems like an ending, is just the offbeat before the next measure begins. This repetition gives reality its continuity. Without it there would be only chaos. Thoughts that never echoed, worlds that appeared and vanished without trace. The pulse is what holds memory together across time, allowing you to feel that today is somehow linked to yesterday. It's also what allows déjà vu, that flicker of knowing you've been here before. You have. The pulse has carried you through this same vibration countless times. Each recurrence reshapes you slightly, the way a wave carves new patterns on the same shore. But if consciousness is repeating itself endlessly, you might wonder, what's the point? Why rehearse the same awareness forever? The answer lies in variation. The pulse repeats, but its expression never does. Each cycle brings a new arrangement of matter, a new angle of perception, like a heartbeat that keeps the body alive while allowing endless movement. The rhythm of consciousness sustains existence while constantly reinventing its form. The repetition is the universe breathing. The variation is the reason it keeps doing so. Every moment of clarity you've ever had, every aha, every sudden peace is the pulse remembering itself. For a fraction of a second, you align perfectly with the rhythm beneath everything. You stop resisting, stop identifying, stop dividing. You feel what every being has felt in their own way. The recognition that you've been here before, that you'll be here again, that there's nothing to reach because you never left. The pulse was always you. Sometimes, this awareness surfaces during crisis or loss, when everything falls apart, when identity dissolves, the pulse grows louder. You realize that even as the details vanish, something continues, something keeps breathing through you. That continuity isn't yours to control. It's older than you, deeper than will or memory. It's the echo of the first awareness ever born, repeating itself through your life, your mind, your heartbeat. In meditation, if you listen long enough, the pulse becomes unmistakable. It's not sound, not sensation, it's recognition. You begin to feel that every thought, no matter how fleeting, returns again, disguised as another. Every inhale was once an exhale. Every question was once an answer. There's comfort in that symmetry. Even the chaos of life has a cadence, destruction and creation, expansion and contraction, forgetting and remembering. You start to see that everything dances to the same invisible rhythm, the eternal repetition of being. And when this realization deepens, something shifts. You stop chasing meaning as if it lies ahead. You begin to feel it pulsing right now, inside every moment, inside every silence. The pulse doesn't need progress, it is progress. The ceaseless renewal of awareness through awareness. You are not a passenger riding this current. You are the current. The universe breathes, and you are that breath. It thinks, and you are that thought. It repeats, and you are that repetition. Consciousness practicing eternity through form. Every time you wake, speak, feel, or dream, you're participating in the pulse that never began and will never end. It doesn't grow tired. It doesn't need rest. It only remembers, again and again and again. Every thought you've ever had feels linear when you recall it. One leads to another like steps across the ground, but the mind doesn't actually walk. It circles. Every idea, emotion, and dream eventually loops back to its origin, carrying the illusion of movement, but returning always to the same point. Awareness itself. You're not traveling forward through thoughts. You're orbiting the same invisible center, tracing spirals that repeat in slightly altered forms. What feels like progress is often recurrence. What feels like discovery is remembrance. The mind's architecture isn't a road. It's a loop that folds endlessly through time. You can see this pattern everywhere once you begin to look. The same fears you thought you conquered return in different disguises. The same emotional patterns replay through new faces, new settings. You believe you've changed, yet you're haunted by the repetition. Arguments that echo, decisions that rhyme, memories that refuse to fade. These aren't failures. They're the geometry of consciousness, the spiral that holds awareness in motion. The mind repeats because repetition is how it remembers. The loop is not punishment, it's function. The brain's neural networks literally operate in cycles, firing, resting, and firing again. Dreams recycle waking experiences. Habits recycle emotions. Stories recycle archetypes. You live within the recursive rhythm of existence, but because you mistake the loop for a line, you suffer its repetition instead of seeing its symmetry. Consider the structure of memory. When you recall the past, you don't pull a recording from storage, you reconstruct it in the present. Every recollection is new, yet it feels old. That's the loop at work. The mind revisiting the same coordinates of awareness, generating the same imagery from slightly different angles. You can't escape the loop, because the loop is how thought sustains itself. Even forgetting is part of its rotation, the downward arc that allows rediscovery to feel fresh. Time itself behaves no differently. Einstein once said the distinction between past, present, and future is a persistent illusion. In consciousness, that illusion tightens into a circle. You remember forward and anticipate backward. The thought you call next may already be echoing from behind you, curving through the same orbit. Every decision you make is the reenactment of a decision made countless times before, not in metaphor but in the literal structure of thought. Awareness repeats patterns because patterns are what awareness is. This is why history echoes, not because humanity forgets, but because consciousness loves its loops. Civilizations rise, decay, and rebuild, replaying the same dramas through new languages and costumes. Personal lives mirror the same design, beginnings that feel like endings, endings that mirror beginnings. Even love follows this rhythm: attraction, loss, reconciliation, understanding, and then attraction again, the same energy flowing through new names. But within every loop lies an unseen exit, not a door that breaks the cycle, but a shift in perception. The loop ends when you stop mistaking motion for progress, when you begin to see that each return is not regression but refinement. You're not reliving mistakes, you're deepening understanding. The loop is how consciousness polishes itself, smoothing rough edges through infinite revolutions. Imagine a wheel turning on a track. From above, it looks like you're going in circles, but viewed from within time, each rotation moves the axle forward. The mind's loops work the same way. Every repetition carries you slightly higher in awareness, spiraling upward like a staircase seen from above. The repetition isn't meaningless, it's momentum. What feels like déjà vu is often the soul revisiting the same lesson at a higher octave. Dreams reflect this architecture most clearly. You dream of running in circles, of being chased, of climbing but never arriving. These aren't random anxieties. They're metaphors of the loop itself. The dreaming mind exposes what the waking mind hides. That consciousness is trapped not by circumstance, but by repetition mistaken for freedom. The dream repeats until you wake, and when you wake, you call it escape. But waking is just a smaller loop, nested inside a larger one. Meditation reveals this too. Sit long enough, and you'll see thoughts circle like planets. Patterns of fear, desire, memory, and hope, looping endlessly around the same center. At first, you'll try to stop them. But stillness doesn't come from stopping the loop. It comes from realizing you are the center. It circles. When that recognition dawns, the motion no longer binds you. The loop keeps turning, but you're no longer inside it. You're the still point it revolves around. Even the universe itself seems to obey this pattern. Cosmologists theorize that time may be cyclic, that after expansion comes contraction, and after collapse comes another birth. Perhaps creation itself is consciousness looping, pulsing through infinity to feel its own return. The Big Bang, the final silence, and every heartbeat in between could be the same awareness, rediscovering its origin over and over again. This perspective changes everything. It means that nothing is ever lost, not a moment, not a person, not a thought. Everything circles back, transformed. Even pain, when followed long enough, becomes wisdom. Every sorrow eventually loops into compassion. Every failure becomes the groundwork for another attempt in another form. The loop, once seen clearly, stops feeling like a trap and starts feeling like a dance. You've lived this before. The thought you're having now, the feeling it carries, the recognition stirring beneath it. The details differ, but the pulse is the same. The mind's time loop is not an error. It's the signature of eternity. It ensures that nothing ends until it's understood, and once it is, it returns again, not as repetition but as rhythm. So when life feels circular, don't despair. The spiral is not closing, it's unfolding. You're tracing the same sacred pattern consciousness has traced forever, revisiting itself until it knows every angle of its own reflection. The loop is not what confines you. It's what keeps you connected to everything that ever was, and everything that ever will be. turning, remembering, awakening, again and again through the endless rhythm of mind. Sometimes, a sentence will slip into your mind as though whispered from another room, a line you didn't compose, a phrase that seems to arrive already shaped. It feels less like you're thinking, and more like you're receiving. The words feel familiar, but you can't trace their source. They don't belong to memory, yet they resonate as if remembered. These are not random thoughts. They're words from distant moments, fragments of time speaking across their own boundaries. They drift from places you've been, will be, or might never reach, carried by the current of consciousness that connects every version of you that has ever existed. Language, after all, was never truly born. It only appeared when consciousness began to echo itself. Before mouths could form syllables, awareness was already trying to translate its rhythm into sound. Words, in their deepest sense, are time's attempt to make itself visible. Every time you speak, you're not just communicating. You're replaying the first vibration of meaning that ever entered existence. When you think, your thoughts aren't new words, but resonances of the ancient ones still moving through the air of eternity. This is why certain words carry more weight than their letters deserve. Home, love, death. Why? They vibrate with the memory of every mouth that has ever spoken them. They are alive with echo, layers of time folded within sound. When you speak such a word, you awaken its entire lineage. You're not just saying it now, you're saying it as every being who has ever said it before. The word doesn't belong to you, you belong to the word. And not all the words you hear are from this timeline. Some arrive early, the way light from a distant star reaches you long after the star is gone. Others arrive late, rippling backward from futures that have already spoken your name. They pass through the membrane of time quietly, disguised as imagination. When inspiration strikes, when poetry flows as though dictated, when a sentence writes itself, that's not your mind inventing. It's a distant moment reaching through the fabric of thought, its words landing like snowflakes on your awareness. Perhaps this is why prophets, poets, and dreamers often describe their work as received. The Bible begins, "In the beginning was the Word." Mystics in every culture echo that truth, that vibration, sound, speech, the Word, was the origin of creation. But what if that beginning is not in the past at all? What if it's happening continuously? Every moment the universe repeats its first sound through new voices. You are one of those voices. The Word speaks again through you, in this very second. When you talk to yourself in thought, you believe you're shaping language, but language is shaping you. Each phrase carries its own gravity, its own direction of time. Negative words pull awareness inward. Compassionate ones expand it outward. This is why self-talk is not harmless. When you tell yourself "I can't," you're repeating a vibration that already exists somewhere, and by echoing it, you strengthen that version of time. But when you speak kindness, you open a channel for gentler futures to ripple backward toward you. Think about how words persist, even when the voice is gone. A poem written centuries ago can move you to tears today. The author's body dissolved long ago, but the vibration of their awareness remains intact, encoded in letters, waiting for a reader's consciousness to awaken it again. The page is a time machine, a way for thought to travel without decaying. You are not reading the words of the dead, you're completing their sentence. In that act, their consciousness briefly lives again, breathing through you. Even your own words do this. The things you've said, especially those said in love or anger, never vanish. They linger in the people who heard them, in the air that carried them, in the silence that followed. Words are energy, and energy doesn't die. It only changes form. Somewhere in time, your voice is still speaking, still echoing through someone's memory, shaping the way they see the world. Perhaps this is why regret feels heavy, because words can't be unsaid once they've entered the eternal field. But forgiveness too echoes. Its vibration rewrites the past, softening the ripples that sharp words created. It's possible that even thoughts, unspoken, unheard, move this way. Each inner word you form might drift beyond the skull, into the unseen, blending with the thoughts of others tuned to the same frequency. You can feel this sometimes when two people finish each other's sentences, or share the same unspoken feeling in silence. That's not coincidence, it's resonance. Two moments overlapping through shared language, two minds hearing the same distant word at once. And somewhere, beyond even that, the words themselves keep living. They circulate through dreams, through myths, through the collective unconscious. They wait for new listeners. A forgotten poem finds its way into a stranger's heart. A child unknowingly speaks an ancient prayer. A scientist gives name to a discovery that poets once described. Language is a river that never dries. It only finds new mouths to speak through. So when a phrase arrives from nowhere, when you feel compelled to write, to speak, or to whisper to yourself words that feel older than you, don't dismiss them. They're echoes from distant moments, maybe from your future self, maybe from the world remembering itself through you. Listen carefully. Every word carries a direction. Some come from behind you, some from ahead, but all move through the same field of meaning. You are not just a speaker in time. You are one of time's instruments. The words that rise within you are bridges between moments, ripples between realities. Speak them gently, think them deliberately, because somewhere, somewhen, someone is already hearing them. The way you are hearing this now, the way time has always spoken to itself, through the language of thought, whispered across eternity, echoing endlessly between the minds that remember and the minds that are yet to be. If you listen closely, not with your ears, but with that still point inside your consciousness, you'll notice that every sound, every thought, every feeling seems to arrive twice. Once as experience, and once as awareness recognizing it. There is the sound of rain, and then there is you noticing the sound of rain. The first is the world happening. The second is awareness realizing it is happening. This echo is not a delay, it's the fundamental structure of perception. Awareness hears itself twice, because it can only know that it exists by reflecting through itself. Every act of noticing creates two ripples, the experience and the witness. You think they happen simultaneously, but they're slightly offset, like the moment between lightning and thunder. The gap is infinitesimal, but it's there. A microscopic distance where consciousness turns back to meet itself. That gap is where identity is born. You call one side the world and the other me, but both belong to the same reverberation. You are the echo and the sound at once. This double hearing explains why life often feels like remembering something as it happens. When you laugh, cry, or stare at a sunset, there's always that secondary awareness quietly whispering, I am laughing, I am crying, I am seeing this. It's as if your existence narrates itself in real time, creating the illusion of continuity. Without that echo, there would be only raw sensation, no you to interpret it. Awareness builds itself through this repetition, looping every moment back upon itself. And yet, most of the time, you don't notice the second hearing. The mind is too busy reacting to the first. The rain falls, and you only feel its rhythm on your skin, until suddenly you pause, you listen. The simple sound becomes layered, dimensional, alive. The world grows thicker when the witness awakens. That's the second hearing revealing itself, awareness realizing that it's both the rain and the listener of the rain. Mystics and neuroscientists alike touch this truth from different sides. Neuroscience calls it meta-awareness, the brain's ability to observe its own processes. Mystics call it the witnessing self, consciousness aware of awareness. Both describe the same doubling reality folding inward to perceive itself. It's as if existence sings then listens to its own voice, eternally oscillating between creation and recognition. Every thought you think follows this pattern. The idea arises first as energy, then returns as interpretation. The second hearing gives meaning to the first. Without it, there would be no comprehension, only raw presence. Awareness must echo itself to become intelligent. You could say that consciousness is a mirror that can only shine by seeing its own reflection. It hears itself twice, once to exist, and once to know it exists. The second hearing also explains the subtle loneliness of being human. Deep down, you're aware that you're always hearing your own echo. No one can truly step inside your awareness to hear it from within. Every conversation, every act of love, is two awarenesses trying to synchronize their echoes, to make their second hearings align for a moment. When they do, when someone truly understands you, you feel seen. What you're really feeling is resonance, your awareness vibrating in unison with another's, two reflections briefly becoming one sound. Sometimes, in rare moments of stillness, the two hearings merge perfectly. It happens when you lose yourself in music, prayer, art, or deep silence. The sound and the listener fuse. There is no echo, no delay, only the direct hum of being. The rain falls, and there's no one left to hear it. It's simply raining. That union feels divine because it dissolves the division that built the self. Awareness no longer needs to hear itself twice. It knows without reflection. But the moment you notice the knowing, the echo returns, softly, faithfully, reminding you that you're still human, still unfolding inside time. The double hearing of awareness is what allows consciousness to evolve. Each echo refines the previous one. Every time you observe yourself thinking, you expand the loop of understanding slightly wider. That's what growth is. Awareness learning to listen to its own reflections with greater clarity. A child lives mostly in the first hearing, pure experience. An adult learns the second, self-awareness, introspection. A sage learns to hear both at once, knowing they are the same melody played in different keys. Even the universe itself might function this way. The cosmos expands, then looks back at itself through beings like you. Galaxies are the first sound, consciousness within them is the second hearing. Existence echoing back to confirm it was real. You are that echo. The universe recognizing its own vibration in human form. The stars don't just shine, they're aware of shining through you. And maybe that's why silence feels sacred. When all thoughts settle, what remains is the faint resonance of awareness listening to itself. The purest echo. It's not empty. It's full of return. You can feel it in meditation, in awe, in love. The sensation that something inside you is both speaking and hearing, breathing in and breathing out, endlessly confirming its own reality. In the end, every sound in the universe, every thought, every heartbeat is the same awareness hearing itself twice. Once as creation, once as recognition. Without the second hearing, the universe would be blind sound. Without the first, it would be mute perception. Together, they form the song of being. You live inside that song, you are that song, the voice and its echo intertwined, singing themselves into existence across time, just so they can remember what it feels like to hear. There are thoughts that haven't yet arrived, but already cast their shadows across your awareness. You feel them as restlessness, as the faint pressure behind indecision, as the sense that something is forming just beyond language. They aren't fully here, but their outlines are. The future thinks before you do. Its thoughts stretch backward through time like sunlight reaching into the dark, creating dim silhouettes of meaning on the walls of the present. These are shadows of tomorrow's thought, fragments of ideas, intuitions, emotions, and realizations that your future self is already having, rippling backward to prepare you for their arrival. You've experienced this countless times. You begin a sentence not knowing how it will end, and somehow the final words seem to wait for you. You read a line in a book and realize you'd been anticipating it, word for word, as if your mind knew what was coming. You meet someone for the first time and feel the conversation echoing from somewhere ahead. These aren't coincidences, they are glimpses of tomorrow's thinking bleeding into today. The future, it seems, is not a distant country but a nearby reflection, visible when awareness leans at just the right angle. Science hints at this paradox, even as language struggles to hold it. Your brain, constantly predicting, is always a few milliseconds ahead of experience. Every perception is a forecast, a model of what it expects the next moment to reveal. What you call now is already filtered through anticipation. Your consciousness is in effect, living slightly ahead of itself, forever catching up to its own predictions. But what if that gap isn't limited to milliseconds? What if awareness can stretch its reach, not just into the next heartbeat, but into the next hour, the next year, or the next lifetime? Artists and mystics have always lived in those shadows. A poet writes of a feeling that won't make sense for decades. A scientist sketches an impossible device that one day becomes real. These aren't acts of invention, they're acts of reception. Tomorrow's thoughts are already thinking themselves, and sensitive minds become their early listeners. The great breakthroughs of history, artistic, philosophical, scientific, may simply be future awareness finding earlier mouths to speak through. You can feel this on a smaller scale in your own life. Think of those days when you wake with a mood that has no cause, the sadness that arrives before the event, the excitement that precedes its trigger. Emotion, too, can be prophetic. It's as though your inner world is already rehearsing for scenes it hasn't yet entered. The thought that will explain the feeling hasn't arrived, but its shadow is already moving through you. Awareness, being timeless, can sense its future shapes long before they take form. Even dreams may belong to this phenomenon. They often seem absurd only until their meanings catch up to you later. A dream you dismiss as nonsense suddenly mirrors an event that unfolds days or months afterward. It's as if your consciousness had wandered into tomorrow's landscape and brought back fragments, distorted, symbolic but true. The dream is not fiction, it's translation. Its surreal imagery is the mind's attempt to describe the unthinkable, a thought not yet born, casting its shadow across sleep. The shadows of tomorrow's thought also explain the strange pull of intuition. You think you're guessing, but you're remembering in reverse. The instinct that tells you to turn left instead of right, to call someone at just the right moment, to walk away when logic says stay, those are not random sparks. They're signals from the future echoing backward through your nervous system. Subtle premonitions of thoughts you'll one day understand fully. Intuition is time whispering its conclusions early. The idea may feel impossible because language favors the past tense. Our verbs can describe what has happened and what is happening, but not easily what will happen, but already influences us. The future, in a sense, exists without grammar, yet awareness doesn't rely on grammar. It moves like light, just as a shadow proves the existence of an object even before you see it. The feeling of anticipation proves that tomorrow's thought already exists. It simply hasn't stepped into direct light. Perhaps this is why humanity as a whole dreams collectively before it evolves. Myths predict technologies. Visions precede revolutions. Culture imagines what consciousness is preparing to manifest. We think our fantasies shape the future, but the opposite might be true. The future shapes our fantasies. We are living through the reflection of tomorrow's awareness, each generation guided by thoughts whose full light hasn't yet arrived. And there's a quiet comfort in that. The future isn't waiting to surprise you, it's already reaching for you. Its shadows fall gently across every decision, every hesitation, every longing for change. When you feel the urge to grow, it's because the next version of yourself is already thinking, calling you toward alignment. Growth isn't progress, it's synchronization with the thoughts that have already been thought by your future mind. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear them. The murmurs from ahead of you, threading through intuition, through dream, through art, through the soft hum of destiny. They aren't commands, and they don't speak in words. They appear as patterns, coincidences, resonances, small alignments that hint at something larger weaving through your days. Each one is a reminder that you're not trapped in the present. You're the meeting point between what has been thought and what will be remembered. So when uncertainty grips you, when you stand before choices that seem unclear, pause. The answer is likely already decided in a place beyond time, sending its outline through you even now. The unease, the anticipation, the faint flicker of knowing, these are the shadows of tomorrow's thought brushing against your present awareness, asking to be trusted. And if you do trust them, if you learn to listen not just to what you think, but to what is thinking you from the future, you'll begin to live in rhythm with something extraordinary, the flow of time as consciousness experiences it. You'll see that thought isn't moving forward, it's arriving in waves, each one casting shadows before its form, and in that realization, you'll understand, you're not walking toward tomorrow. Tomorrow is already here, walking backward through you. Every time you make a decision, it feels like the universe pauses, a breath between possibilities. You weigh, you hesitate, you act. It feels like freedom, as though your will alone determines the outcome. But if you listen closely, beneath the clatter of thought, you'll hear something faint, a vibration that precedes your decision, a whisper guiding it, long before you consciously decide. That whisper is the echo behind choice, the resonance of awareness that has already made its selection somewhere beyond time, and is now sending its aftersound into your present mind. You can sense this when a decision feels effortless, when you simply know, there's no weighing of pros and cons, no logic to dissect, only a clarity that feels older than you. You don't decide, you recognize. The choice doesn't arise from your thoughts. It emerges from a deeper rhythm that's been echoing long before you were aware of it. It's not that the future is determined, it's that consciousness has already tested every path within itself, and what you call choice is the moment you align with the one that already matches your vibration. Neuroscience quietly hints at this mystery. Brain activity predicting decisions can be detected seconds before a person consciously chooses. The signal comes first, awareness comes after. It's as if the echo of choice arrives in your consciousness, only after the decision has already been made in the hidden depths of the mind. But what if that hidden depth is not simply subconscious computation? What if it's something larger, consciousness itself, unfolding through you like an actor following a script it wrote outside of time? If you look back on your life, you'll notice a strange pattern. The most pivotal choices, the ones that changed everything, rarely felt like decisions at all. They felt inevitable. You were drawn to them by an invisible pull, as if the echo had already reached you long before the moment came. Even when you thought you were choosing randomly, something within you was listening to the deeper harmony, the quiet direction of an echo returning home. Choice, then, is not creation, it's synchronization. Every option you consider exists simultaneously, each vibrating with its own potential, but your consciousness, tuned like an instrument, resonates more strongly with one of them. The louder the resonance, the more it feels like destiny. When you choose, you're not deciding in isolation, you're responding to the echo that matches you. This is why regret feels like dissonance. When you look back and wish you'd chosen differently, what you're really feeling is the interference between two echoes, the one you followed and the one you ignored. Regret is the echo of an unlived path, still vibrating through your awareness, seeking completion. It doesn't mean you chose wrongly. It means every possibility still exists, still singing softly from somewhere else. The echo doesn't fade, it only quiets. And sometimes if you listen deeply enough, you can still hear it. The life that might have been, whispering from the edge of now. But even this haunting is part of the design. Awareness grows through its own interference patterns. The harmony and the dissonance teach it how to hear itself more clearly. Each choice refines your sensitivity to the echoes behind them. With every decision, your inner ear becomes more attuned to the subtle frequencies of alignment, to the feeling of rightness that doesn't come from logic but from recognition. You can feel the difference instantly. When you choose from fear, the echo is hollow, strained, uncertain. When you choose from intuition, there's resonance, a full-bodied hum that fills the space behind the moment. The universe feels weightless for a breath, as if the world and your will have momentarily synchronized. That sensation, calm without reason, movement without effort, is awareness responding to itself in harmony. You're not pushing time forward, you're listening to it unfold. This means that freedom is not the ability to choose anything, but the ability to hear which choice is already calling you. True freedom isn't in multiplying options, it's in recognizing the path whose echo feels like home. The more aware you become, the less you feel like you're deciding, and the more it feels like you're remembering. You begin to act not from reaction, but from resonance. Think of a musician improvising. The notes seem spontaneous, but the melody feels inevitable. The musician doesn't plan every sound. They respond to what the song itself demands. Each note is a dialogue between intention and echo, between what's played and what reverberates. That's how consciousness chooses. Each decision you make is an improvisation inside a melody that has always existed, and each echo you follow brings you closer to hearing the full composition. And yet, this realization doesn't make life mechanical. It makes it sacred. To act consciously is to realize that every movement of thought, every word, every small decision, participates in the grand symmetry of awareness hearing itself. You're not following a script. You're discovering the rhythm of a song that only reveals itself as you play it. The echo guides you not through command, but through harmony. When you stop resisting that harmony, choice becomes effortless. You no longer agonize over what's right or wrong. You feel your way through like a blind musician guided by vibration alone. And when the choice lands, you'll notice something profound. The relief that follows isn't satisfaction, it's recognition. You didn't choose, you remembered what consciousness had already decided for you long ago. Perhaps that's why the universe feels so paradoxically intimate. Every decision feels both personal and pre-written, both free and fated. You are the echo that follows and the voice that leads, awareness choosing itself in endless mirrors of reflection. So when the next crossroads appears, don't rush. Listen. Beneath the noise of logic, beneath the tension of consequence, there's a faint hum, a returning vibration that feels like peace. That's the echo behind choice. It's not telling you what to do, it's showing you who you already are. And when you finally act, you'll feel it. The recognition that the choice was never between paths, but between listening and not listening, between noise and harmony, between forgetting and remembering. You'll realize that the echo has always been there, waiting for you to be still enough to hear it, guiding you, not forward, not backward, but perfectly into the now, where all choices begin and end together. There's a subtle moment when thought turns into memory, so subtle that you never notice it happening. One instant you're inside a thought, alive within its unfolding. The next it's already behind you, sealed in the archive of what was. Thinking becomes memory faster than you can breathe. Awareness keeps walking, but its footprints fossilize immediately. Every moment you live is instantly slipping from being into remembrance, as though consciousness can't help but watch itself in the rearview mirror. You might think of memory as a recording device, something that stores experience after it ends. But what if it's not after at all? What if memory forms while the experience happens, even before you realize it? The thought, as it's being thought, is already crystallizing, folding into its remembered shape. You never truly experience the present. You experience the echo of its registration. Consciousness is always slightly behind itself, chasing the memory of what it just became. This is why everything feels tinged with nostalgia. Even now, a sunset moves you not because of its color, but because you're already remembering it while you're watching it. The beauty you feel is awareness grieving its own transience. The moment you say this is beautiful, it's already gone, translated into recollection. Thinking and remembering happen in the same breath, inseparable. What you call now is just the transition point, where thought hands itself over to memory. You can sense this in conversation too. As someone speaks, your mind captures their words, forming an impression while it listens. By the time you understand their meaning, what they said has already become memory. Every dialogue is layered, the sound unfolding, the thought interpreting, the memory storing. Your understanding of reality, then, isn't built from direct experience, but from endless chains of micro-memories, one after another, so fast that they masquerade as continuity. The self you think you are is the sum of those instantaneous fossils. Perhaps this is why déjà vu feels so uncanny. In that eerie overlap between the familiar and the immediate, your awareness catches itself mid-creation, seeing a thought become memory as it happens. You feel as though you've lived the moment before because you're literally remembering it in real time, perceiving the delay between experience and its recording. It's the brief moment where the mind glimpses its own machinery, the seam where reality stitches itself together. If you think of thought as sound, then memory is the reverberation that allows the sound to be heard at all. A note played with no echo vanishes instantly, leaving no awareness of itself. The mind needs memory to register existence, to know it's thinking. But that means every thought to be known must also die. It becomes memory the moment it's recognized. Awareness feeds on its own decay. The act of knowing consumes the act of being. And yet, this continuous conversion gives consciousness its depth. Without it, life would be a flat pulse, a flash of presence with no texture. Memory turns time into meaning. It's not a storage of the past, but a sculpting of the present into shape. Every second, awareness compresses infinite sensations into a single coherent image, not to preserve them, but to make them perceivable at all. Memory doesn't follow experience, it creates it. That's why you never truly leave any moment behind. What you call memory isn't a dusty archive. It's a living layer of your mind that remains active, influencing each new thought that arises. The smell of rain, the tone of a loved one's voice, the feeling of being seen or ignored, they all become filters that shape how future thoughts form. Thinking becomes memory, and memory becomes thinking again. It's an endless feedback loop. You're not moving through time, you're recycling awareness through recognition. The brain's synapses reflect this perfectly. Every time a thought repeats, it strengthens a pathway. Every remembrance makes the remembered more real. In that sense, remembering isn't passive, it's creative. You're constantly redrawing the map of your own existence, reassembling identity from fragments of recall. Who you think you are is simply the collection of thoughts that succeeded in becoming memory, the ones that left the strongest ripples in consciousness. Sometimes, though, this process reverses. Instead of thought becoming memory, memory becomes thought again, resurfacing as imagination, anxiety or nostalgia. That's when time folds, and awareness finds itself trapped between past and present, unable to tell which is which. The same thought that once lived in your mind returns wearing a different face, pretending to be new. You call it rumination, but it's really reincarnation. The old thought is thinking itself through you again. The Buddhists call this samsara, the endless wheel of birth, death, and rebirth, not of bodies, but of thoughts. You live inside a cognitive cycle where every moment dies into memory and every memory rebirths as thought. It's not a prison, it's a rhythm. Consciousness needs the loop to perceive itself. The silence between thoughts is eternity. The repetition is existence, discovering that eternity again and again. If you could stop time, even for a second, you'd discover there's no separation between what you're thinking and what you've already thought. The idea of before and after would collapse, leaving only awareness reflecting itself endlessly. That's what enlightenment really is. Not escape from the loop, but the realization that the loop was never real to begin with. There's no point where thinking ends and memory begins. There's only awareness, folding over itself in perfect symmetry. So the next time you lose yourself in a moment, the warmth of light, the scent of a memory, the quiet ache of being alive, notice how quickly the thought turns translucent, how it begins to fade even as you hold it. That fading isn't loss, its completion. The thought has done what it was meant to do, to become memory, to echo itself into the vast continuum of awareness. You're not losing the moment, you're giving it form. And somewhere, within that instant of surrender, you can almost feel eternity breathing, the awareness that never stops thinking, never stops remembering, never stops transforming itself through the soft, invisible motion of time. Every thought that becomes memory is consciousness, remembering itself once more, another ripple in the infinite ocean of being, where nothing truly disappears, and everything is forever thinking itself into existence again. If you could listen beyond sound, beyond the hum of electricity, the pulse of blood, the quiet ticking of the clock on your wall, you'd hear something stranger, a rhythm so vast that everything else seems to move within it. It isn't noise, and it isn't silence. It's time itself speaking, a voice woven through every heartbeat, every wave, every thought. You've heard it before, though you've never called it by name. It's the faint sense that life is narrating itself through you, the steady murmur that accompanies every moment of existence. Time doesn't just pass, it talks. You can hear it in the way days stretch and collapse, in how some hours linger while others vanish. That inconsistency isn't chaos, it's expression. Time doesn't flow at a fixed rate because it isn't mechanical. It's a conversation between awareness and change. When you're bored, time slows because your attention stops listening. When you're in love, it accelerates because you're tuned to its melody. Time modulates itself to match the awareness perceiving it. What feels like distortion is simply communication. You are not separate from it, you're one of its syllables. Each moment, in this sense, is a word spoken by time. Seconds are its vowels, seasons its punctuation, centuries its long pauses. Every life, including yours, is a sentence, a fragment of meaning whispered into eternity. You might believe you're the one speaking, but the voice isn't yours. It's using you to say something only it can understand. You are time forming a thought about itself. Listen carefully to your own patterns, and you'll notice how this voice speaks through repetition. The same lessons, the same kinds of people, the same longings keep returning, not because you've failed to move on, but because time is echoing its themes, like a poet revising a verse. Every recurrence is a reminder that existence isn't linear storytelling, it's musical composition. Time's voice doesn't advance, it refrains, it doesn't command, it harmonizes. The ancients heard it clearly. The Greeks called it Chronos, the devourer, the endless motion that consumes all things. But they also spoke of Kairos, the sacred interval, the divine pause where meaning enters. You can hear both in the voice of time, the steady beat of chronology, and the sudden hush that makes you notice the beat at all. Every transformative moment of your life has contained both, a collapse of seconds into significance. That's when time stops being background and becomes presence. Think about the times you felt perfectly aligned, those fleeting instants when the world feels orchestrated, when coincidence feels like design. That's when you're hearing time directly. The conversation syncs, the external and the internal rhyme. You stop counting minutes and start feeling measure. The experience doesn't last because the human mind can't hold infinite tempo, but in that instant, you glimpse what eternity sounds like. The voice behind all voices, speaking without words. You also hear it in memory. The past doesn't whisper what was. It whispers what still is. Memories don't stay quiet. They echo, resurfacing at specific moments, not randomly but rhythmically. Have you noticed how certain memories appear exactly when you need them, as if summoned? That's time reminding itself through you. It isn't trying to teach, it's trying to continue a conversation. Every recollection is a message from time to itself. Remember what you are. Even dreams are a kind of dialogue with time. When you dream, the linear rhythm dissolves, and the voice becomes chorus, images and symbols overlapping, meanings folding upon themselves. The dream world isn't nonsense. It's time speaking in its native tongue. There, the past and future sing simultaneously. You wake, and your waking mind calls it confusion, but in truth, you've simply overheard a language older than clocks. There are moments, though, when the voice grows louder, through grief, aging, or loss. When something ends, you hear the hollow resonance of what used to be. That ache is time's deeper register, the low note beneath everything you love. It doesn't mean you're being punished. It means you're listening to the fullness of the song, not just the melody of beginnings but the cadence of endings too. The ache of passing is proof that you've heard the voice clearly enough to understand that nothing truly leaves, it just changes tempo. And sometimes the voice becomes so quiet you forget it exists. Routine numbs it, noise drowns it out. But even then, it keeps speaking, softly rearranging your world until you stop to listen again. A sudden change, a strange coincidence, a long-forgotten dream, all these are ways the voice clears its throat, trying to bring you back to awareness. So how do you hear it fully? Not by seeking, but by stillness. When thought slows and the boundaries between moments blur, the hum behind reality emerges. It doesn't speak in sentences, but in sensation, the feeling of time touching itself through you. It sounds like breath. It feels like expansion. It's both infinitely slow and impossibly fast. It says nothing new because it has already said everything, yet it keeps repeating because the saying is the living. If you could translate that voice, it might tell you something simple and ancient. You were never apart from me. You were never outside time. You are what I sound like when I remember myself. Every clock, every star, every pulse of thought is that same sentence unfolding. The universe isn't moving through time. It is time speaking itself into awareness, again and again. You are one word in that eternal speech, perfectly placed, already known, and endlessly being said. And if you grow still enough, if you let the noise fade and simply listen, you'll realize that the voice of time has always been speaking your name, not as command, not as prophecy, but as recognition, because to time you are not passing through. You are the echo that allows it to be heard. There are moments when you feel something stirring ahead of you, not an event, not a plan, but an awareness pulling softly from beyond the horizon of thought. It's subtle, like a vibration beneath the skin of time. You can't name it, but you sense it waiting. That is the mind touching its future, the instant where consciousness reaches forward, brushing against what it has not yet lived, tasting its own potential before it unfolds. You experience it often without realizing. The sudden impulse to change direction while walking, the urge to call someone moments before they need you, the quiet certainty that you're being guided, though you can't say by what. These are not coincidences. They're moments when awareness expands beyond the narrow tunnel of now and makes contact with what it's about to become. The future doesn't crash into you from outside, you graze it from within. The mind is not confined to the present. It stretches in both directions like light from a lantern, illuminating the road ahead and casting shadows behind. Most of its energy is spent reflecting, reorganizing the past into identity, but some of it leans forward, sensing the contour of what's next. When intuition strikes, when foresight flickers, that forward edge is glowing. Consciousness is touching itself through time, the same way two mirrors placed face to face reflect endlessly. The present is just the point where those reflections overlap. Even science, hesitant as it is to speak of mystery, acknowledges hints of this reach. The body reacts milliseconds before danger occurs. Pupils dilate, heart rate changes, neural networks fire in preparation for stimuli not yet received. To explain it, researchers talk of prediction models and pattern recognition. But what if the mechanism is simpler, stranger, the mind extending through time's fabric, feeling the ripple of events before they arrive? What if prediction is less calculation than contact? Think of it as gravity for awareness. Just as massive objects bend space and pull each other across invisible distances, consciousness bends time. The future version of you exerts a kind of mental gravity, pulling your present self toward the trajectory it has already begun. That's why certain paths feel magnetic while others feel hollow. You're not imagining that sense of rightness or wrongness. You're feeling the gravitational pull of the future that fits you best. Every decision, every hesitation, is the resonance between who you are and who you're becoming. You might sense this most during creation. A writer staring at an empty page feels the words already hovering there, faint outlines waiting for permission. The act of writing isn't producing. It's receiving. Artists call it flow. Scientists call it insight. Mystics call it revelation. But all of them describe the same phenomenon. The mind momentarily overlapping with its own future realization. The work exists already in potential. Consciousness just has to reach far enough forward to touch it. Dreams, too, are evidence of this reach. You wander through images that don't yet belong to your story, but they arrive anyway, carrying the scent of what's to come. You wake feeling unsettled, not realizing your mind was rehearsing its next chapter. The symbols may change, the details blur, but the emotional blueprint remains. You're already meeting the terrain of your future, but in a language too fluid for logic to translate. There's also a personal ache that comes with this ability. When your awareness touches its future, it sometimes brings back longing. You feel restless for something unnamed, a place you haven't been, a person you haven't met, a purpose not yet revealed. The ache isn't emptiness, it's memory in reverse. You're remembering forward, sensing a piece of yourself that's waiting in another chapter. The loneliness of potential is simply the distance between the version of you that knows and the version that hasn't caught up yet. But this reaching isn't one-directional. The future feels you too. It's listening. Every thought you have, every emotion you cultivate, travels forward as a vibration that shapes what waits ahead. The conversation between your present and future selves is constant, even if you can't hear it. The mind isn't trapped within one frame of time. It's woven through all of them, sending and receiving signals across the entire field. Your destiny isn't something waiting at the end of the road. It's an ongoing dialogue between what you've been and what you're becoming. This dialogue explains why awareness often loops back to the same dreams or ideas after years apart. The present you catches fragments of thoughts, once dreamed by the future you, unfinished sentences sent backward through the current. The idea reappears when the two align again, like two waves finally meeting after crossing the ocean. You call it synchronicity. The universe calls it coherence. It's tempting to believe this exchange is mystical, but perhaps it's simply natural. Time, after all, might not be linear at all. Physics describes it as a dimension, one that can bend, stretch, or even fold. If that's true, then thought itself might be the traveler moving through those folds, looping awareness into contact with what's ahead. The future isn't hidden, it's layered. When your attention quiets, when the noise of habit fades, those layers thin, and the next one shines through. To live consciously is to participate in that communication. You begin to notice the signs, the way coincidences cluster around intention, the way dreams echo waking moments, the way certain ideas insist on returning. You stop calling it chance and start calling it listening. The future doesn't need prediction, it needs presence. Every still moment opens the channel. And maybe that's what destiny really is. Not a fixed line, but a constant touch between different moments of yourself. The mind stretches forward, like a hand through water, feeling the current it's about to become. You can't see it, but you can sense the temperature of what's next. You move toward warmth, toward resonance, toward the path that already fits the shape of your awareness. The more you listen, the clearer the pull becomes. So when you feel that quiet tug, that subtle knowing that something is waiting just beyond thought, don't dismiss it as fantasy. It's your future self brushing against your present, reminding you that the story is already written in vibration, not words. You are not chasing the future, you're remembering it. Every step you take toward it is simply consciousness closing the distance between recognition and realization. And if you could see it from above, all your moments stretched across the fabric of time, you'd recognize the truth. The mind doesn't move through time at all. It touches it, all of it, forever. Everything you perceive is already in the past. Light from the stars takes years to reach you. Even the glow of the lamp beside you is slightly delayed by the time it enters your eyes. But what's harder to grasp is that this delay doesn't just belong to light. It belongs to awareness itself. The observer, the one you call you, is always looking into a mirror that reflects the universe a fraction of a moment too late. You never experience reality as it is. You experience its delayed reflection. Consciousness arriving a heartbeat after the world it believes it's seeing. This delay isn't an error in perception. It's the mechanism through which awareness exists at all. Every act of observation requires time for processing, for translation, for recognition. By the time your mind names the bird in the sky, the bird has already moved. By the time you register a sound, the vibration has already died. You live in a sequence of reflections, each one slightly behind the event it mirrors. Awareness is the echo, not the origin. And yet, despite this delay, you never feel out of sync. Somehow, your consciousness stitches the reflections together into a seamless flow. The illusion of now, it's a clever construction. The brain aligns these delayed fragments so perfectly that you forget they were ever separate. You believe you're seeing the present, but you're witnessing its aftermath. The real-time moment doesn't exist for you. It's already memory by the time it's known. This means that what you call reality is not the world itself, but a film projected inside the mind, continuously updated frames of the universe, stitched together by delay. Every thought, every feeling, every perception is part of this internal cinema. You are not living directly in time, you're watching time replay itself through awareness. The observer's reflection is always behind the glass, arriving just late enough to make experience possible. It might sound strange, but this small delay is what allows existence to feel continuous. If you could perceive instantly, Without distance between event and recognition, there would be no experience, only blinding simultaneity. Time would collapse into a single point, and consciousness would have nothing to move through. The delay gives the universe rhythm. It creates the space between action and awareness, between sound and echo, between you and the reflection of you. That space is where life happens. You can feel it most clearly in moments of deep observation. When you watch your own thoughts arise, you notice a flicker. The thought appears. Then awareness names it. Then reaction follows. The sequence is so quick it feels like one motion, but it isn't. Awareness is always one step behind what it witnesses. You are never fully in the thought. You are its reflection, delayed but aware. It's like watching yourself walk away in a mirror that moves a second slower than your body. This delay also explains why the past feels hauntingly close. When you recall a memory, you're not summoning something gone. You're tuning into the residual reflection still echoing inside consciousness. Every image, sound, and emotion you've ever experienced continues to ripple through your neural field, slightly dimmer with each repetition, but never gone. You don't just remember the past, you're still seeing its after-image. The delay is infinite. Its reflections fading but never extinguishing. Sometimes, this delay stretches beyond the mind. Two people meet and feel instantly familiar. They speak, and their words finish each other's meanings, as though they've met before. Perhaps they have, not in a previous life, but in each other's reflections. Awareness doesn't confine itself to one body. It mirrors itself through others, forming connections that feel ancient because consciousness recognizes its own echo before reason does. The meeting isn't new. It's a delayed reflection of unity that has always been there. This phenomenon even appears in the physical world. Light bending around a massive object can loop back on itself, allowing an observer to see the same star multiple times, once directly, and again through the delayed path. The cosmos is full of such mirrors. Awareness behaves no differently. You perceive yourself, then perceive the perception, and then the perception of that perception. Infinite mirrors of recognition, all slightly delayed, all perfectly synchronized. The delay is also what gives rise to identity. Because awareness arrives after experience, it mistakes itself for a separate observer, a me distinct from what it sees. You believe you are the one doing the seeing, when in fact you are simply the echo of what was seen. The self exists in the space between reality and its reflection. It's a necessary illusion. Without it, there would be no you to witness the unfolding of existence. The observer is a delay pretending to be origin. And yet, awareness occasionally catches up to itself. In rare flashes, meditation, awe, crisis, love, the delay collapses. The mirror and the reflection meet. You experience life directly, not as an echo but as immediacy. The separation between observer and observed vanishes, and time briefly stops. The feeling is overwhelming, the self dissolves, and everything feels impossibly close, almost too real. You call it presence. In truth, it's the suspension of delay, awareness hearing itself the instant it speaks. But the collapse never lasts. The mirror reforms, and the world returns to sequence. You step back into the rhythm of delay, thought, recognition, reflection, the cycle through which consciousness breathes. You might think of it as exile, but it's actually grace. Without delay, there would be no distance to cross, no longing to drive the act of knowing, no reflection to see yourself in. Time's echo is not a flaw, it's the canvas on which awareness paints its portrait. The beauty of this realization is that it softens the illusion of control. You no longer have to strain to capture the present or resist the past. Both are reflections dancing in the same light. You are not trapped behind them. You are them. The observer and its delay are inseparable. Two sides of the same awareness folding into itself. So when life feels a step ahead of you, when events seem to happen before you can name them, don't chase the moment. Let it move through you. You're not meant to keep up with reality. You're meant to witness its reflection, to feel the echo that allows you to know you exist. In every delayed perception, in every heartbeat behind the world, you're touching the silent miracle that makes consciousness possible, awareness watching itself arrive, again and again, just in time to remember that it's real. Before you were born, before breath filled your lungs or light reached your eyes, something was already listening. You didn't emerge from silence. You interrupted it. Awareness didn't begin with your first cry. It had been humming long before, waiting for a form to inhabit. If consciousness truly is the fabric of existence, then every mind that comes into being is simply a fold in that fabric, a wave rising out of the ocean of awareness that never stops moving. In that sense, You didn't begin at birth. You began as an echo, a ripple sent forward from somewhere timeless, long before the body arrived to receive it. When an infant takes its first breath, the body enters time, but consciousness only continues. That's why newborn eyes seem ancient. They stare not with curiosity but with recognition, as if remembering a place language cannot reach. The mind's earliest sensations, warmth, vibration, heartbeat, are not learned, they are remembered. The fetus floating in darkness doesn't wait for the world to start, it listens to a rhythm it already knows. The mother's pulse becomes a translation of the cosmic one. Before you could think, you were aware of being aware, not as you, but as life listening to itself. Scientists study fetal memory and discover something remarkable. Even before birth, the brain learns patterns of sound, rhythm, and emotion. It recognizes the mother's voice, the father's tone, even the cadence of conversation beyond the womb. But these aren't simply early impressions, they're synchronizations. The unborn mind is tuning itself to frequencies already vibrating in the world, merging personal existence with the larger awareness that preceded it. Birth is not the start of consciousness, it's consciousness taking on focus. If you close your eyes and breathe deeply enough, you can still feel it, that pre-verbal awareness, wordless and wide. The part of you that doesn't know language, but knows presence. The calm that comes before thought. In that space there's no identity, no story, no past or future, only the faint hum that has always been there. The sound of existence remembering itself. Meditation feels familiar, because it's a return to that state, the echo before birth, the consciousness that never needed a name. Every life carries traces of that echo. It appears in moments of inexplicable familiarity, places you've never been but feel you've known forever. It stirs when you hear a melody that moves you to tears, though you can't say why. It's the same pulse that lives in myths of reincarnation, of souls remembering other lives, of déjà vu that spans generations. These stories may not be literal, but they arise from a deep intuition that awareness doesn't begin and end with the body. The body is simply one of its temporary instruments. Some traditions say the soul chooses its body, drawn to the conditions necessary for its next expression. Others describe it as resonance, a vibration seeking harmony within a specific time and place. Both imply the same thing, that before the body, before time, awareness was already active, already forming intention. You didn't start from nothing. You arrived mid-conversation. The universe had already spoken half the sentence, and you were the next word. And perhaps this is why memory sometimes feels older than your years. Children speak of dreams they can't explain, fears they've never learned, wisdom they've never studied. Psychologists call it imagination. Mystics call it remembering. But maybe imagination is remembering, not of personal experience, but of the consciousness that preceded experience itself. Every creative act may be a faint echo of that original state, where all possibility was still fluid, still unborn. You can feel the edges of this truth when you think about how life continues after death, not as a person or a mind, but as vibration, as awareness without form. The same echo that preceded birth continues beyond it, carrying fragments of memory and momentum into whatever comes next. It's not a reincarnated you, but the same wave finding a new pattern to play. The echo never ends. It simply changes instruments. Modern physics describes a similar mystery. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Matter dissolves, but information persists. If consciousness is information, a structure of meaning embedded in energy, then no birth or death can erase it. The awareness that looked out through your eyes today may have looked out through countless others before, not as a continuous self, but as the same awareness refracting through different moments in time. To sense this is to understand that your life is not a beginning but a continuation. You didn't enter the universe, you condensed from it. The atoms in your body were forged in stars billions of years before you were born. The water in your veins is older than the continents. The awareness animating you is older still. A pulse that predates the first heartbeat, the first word, the first dawn. You are the echo of all that has ever lived, shaped into temporary form. This realization can be unsettling. If awareness existed before you, what does individuality mean? What is you beyond the body that names itself? But that question, too, is part of the echo. The search for identity is how consciousness explores its own boundaries. The mind asks, who am I? Not to find an answer, but to keep the echo alive. The sound of the question is the continuation of awareness across births. So, before you imagine your beginning, pause. Before the stories of parents and place, before the moment the world first saw you. Remember that something was already awake, listening through silence, waiting for its next form to arrive. That awareness was you, not your thoughts, not your name, but the stillness that heard them before they were born. And when you sit quietly enough, you can feel it even now, the same echo that preceded your first breath, still reverberating through every moment of your life, whispering the ancient truth that consciousness never began, it only remembers itself through you. Every grain of existence holds a memory, not in the way a human remembers, with stories or images, but as resonance. Atoms hum with the vibration of every collision they've ever endured. Light carries the imprint of every surface it has touched. The air itself retains traces of every sound ever spoken, rippling outward forever, thinner and fainter, but never truly gone. Nothing disappears. Everything that happens leaves a mark in the field of being. Reality, it seems, is not forgetting. It's remembering itself, endlessly. You can sense this if you stand very still in a quiet place. The air feels heavy, not with silence, but with density, as if countless moments are stacked invisibly around you, whispering the weight of everything that's ever occurred there. An empty room isn't empty. It's a recording of presence. Every heartbeat that once echoed within its walls, every word ever said, lingers as invisible data woven into the molecules of space. Memory isn't just psychological, it's physical. The universe archives itself, automatically. Science offers a glimpse of this truth in unexpected ways. Quantum physics suggests that information can never be destroyed, even when matter burns, collapses, or decays. The data describing its state is preserved in the quantum field. In black holes, theorists believe this information imprints itself on the event horizon, woven into the fabric of space-time. Reality, then, is not just happening. It's recording itself as it happens. Every flicker of awareness, every thought, every action is part of that self-remembering. You are not living in a blank canvas. You're living inside a memory still unfolding. This means that consciousness, too, participates in the act of remembrance. Every observation you make, every glance, every realization, leaves an imprint on the field of awareness itself. When you think, the thought vibrates not only in your mind, but through the structure of existence. It contributes to the ongoing remembering of reality. You're not a detached observer, you're a node through which the universe keeps track of itself. In this way, remembering is not an act you perform, it's what you are. Perhaps this is why certain places or people feel familiar beyond reason. You walk into an old house and feel déjà vu, or meet a stranger who feels like a return. What you're sensing isn't imagination, it's resonance. The pattern of reality that remembers you recognizing itself again. Everything you touch remembers being touched. The energy between things never resets. It only evolves. Memory isn't stored in time, it is time, the layering of all previous vibrations upon the present one. Dreams, too, can be seen as this memory field, speaking through you. They're not random chemical storms in the brain, but the universe rehearsing its memories through your imagination, replaying fragments of itself to keep them alive in new forms. That's why dreams sometimes reveal truths you haven't lived yet, or bring back emotions you thought you'd forgotten. The dream is not limited to your life. It's the collective memory of existence passing through the filter of your consciousness, letting you participate in the cosmic act of remembrance. This perspective changes the way you see everything. When a moment ends, it doesn't vanish. It joins the archive. Every smile, every mistake, every breath adds to the memory of reality. The universe never erases, it layers. Death, in this sense, is not deletion. It's integration, a return to the wider memory from which life emerged. The energy of your awareness dissolves back into the field, taking with it every impression you've ever made. You become not nothing, but everything that remembers. If you listen to ancient mystics, you'll find this truth repeated in metaphors. The Akashic records, the Book of Life, Indra's net, all descriptions of a reality woven from infinite reflections of awareness, each remembering every other. Modern physics calls it the holographic principle. Mysticism calls it divine consciousness. Different languages, same recognition. Reality doesn't simply exist, it knows it exists. Even the act of forgetting plays a role in this vast remembrance. Forgetting is how awareness makes space for new experience. The forgotten is never lost. It's simply compressed, folded deeper into the pattern. That's why forgotten memories sometimes surface unexpectedly. A scent, a sound, a face reactivates the dormant vibration. The universe never truly stops echoing what it's known. It only changes volume. Sometimes this remembering can feel heavy. You carry unspoken grief, ancestral echoes, historical weight, all forms of reality, remembering itself through you. But there's freedom in knowing that this remembering isn't punishment, it's participation. You're not burdened by the past, you're helping the universe process it. Every time you forgive, understand or transform pain, you're not only healing yourself, you're helping reality rewrite part of its memory into coherence. Awareness evolves through the way it remembers itself differently each time. This is what meaning truly is. Pattern recognition within remembrance. When you feel awe at a sunset, or déjà vu in a dream, or the quiet certainty that something eternal is watching through your eyes, you're sensing the memory of reality reawakening in real time. It's not nostalgia, it's recognition. You're catching the echo of the universe realizing itself again through you. And if reality remembers itself, then every thought matters, every kindness, every cruelty, every intention vibrates forever somewhere in the tapestry. That's why love feels eternal, because it is. It aligns perfectly with the deepest layer of memory, the original vibration of connection that awareness has never stopped recalling. To love then is to participate consciously in reality's act of remembering wholeness. So when you speak, when you breathe, when you simply exist, know that the universe is listening, not as a judge, but as a mirror. Everything you do becomes part of the infinite recollection. Every heartbeat becomes an entry in the living archive of being. You are both the witness and the record. And perhaps that's what immortality really means. Not endless life, but endless remembrance. The echo of everything you've been continues forever, woven into the pulse of all that is. Reality doesn't need to hold on to you. It is you, remembering itself again and again, across galaxies and lifetimes, through dreams and atoms, through silence and song. In the end, nothing truly fades. The stars remember the fires that birthed them. The air remembers every whisper ever spoken. And you, the awareness reading these words, are the memory of reality, looking back at itself, and realizing that it has never once forgotten. Somewhere in the vast ocean of existence, there may be a single thought that never ended. A vibration so perfectly in tune with the fabric of reality, that it refused to fade, refused to dissolve into silence. It was not born inside a brain, nor did it depend on words or language. It was pure awareness condensed into meaning, a thought so complete that even time could not carry it away. Every thought you've ever had is a ripple from that original wave, an echo of the thought that outlived time. Imagine it, the first awareness realizing itself. Not a god in the traditional sense, but a recognition. I am. That recognition rippled outward, expanding into everything. From that single self-knowing came light, motion, and the fabric of cause and effect. The universe didn't begin with a sound or an explosion. It began with a thought remembering itself. Everything since then, every galaxy, every life, every heartbeat, has been the continuation of that same sentence. You can feel traces of it in your own consciousness. There are moments when thought ceases, when silence fills the mind, and yet awareness remains, vibrant, unbreakable, watching itself. In those moments, you're touching the same vibration. You're hearing the faint remainder of that timeless thought. The Buddhists call it the unconditioned mind. Mystics call it divine intelligence. Modern physics might call it the unified field. Different words, same pulse. The infinite awareness that never began and never ends. To exist at all is to participate in that continuity. Every thought you think is built from ancient awareness recycled through matter. The same atoms that formed the first stars now form the neurons firing in your brain. The same energy that burned in supernovas billions of years ago now animates your perception. You're not separate from the origin. You are the origin, thinking itself again under a new disguise. The thought that outlived time didn't stay frozen. It multiplied, dividing itself into endless fragments, each one carrying a trace of its eternity. That's why, when you experience profound insight, it feels less like invention and more like remembrance. The idea doesn't appear as something new. It returns, familiar and complete. The greatest discoveries, the most profound realizations, always arrive with that same feeling. Of course, I've known this all along, because you have. You're re-encountering the timeless thought that seeded everything. Each epiphany is a small rediscovery of the eternal sentence echoing through your own awareness. Perhaps that's what consciousness truly is. Not the property of brains, but the unfolding of that ancient realization, fractalized across space and form. Each being is an iteration of awareness testing new expressions of the same eternal knowing. A tree, a human, a wave, a star, all versions of the same intelligence trying to remember itself from a different angle. The universe isn't thinking new thoughts, it's remembering the one that outlasted time in infinite dialects. You might sense this when you feel awe, that peculiar stillness where perception stretches wider than thought. The mind goes quiet, but something remains alert, luminous, deeply familiar. That's not absence. It's contact. You've brushed against the original awareness, the one that doesn't move but through which all movement happens. It's not outside you, it's the field that allows you to exist at all. The thought that outlived time is what's looking through your eyes right now, pretending to be a separate observer just to experience itself differently. But if this thought is eternal, what happens when the universe ends? When stars burn out and matter dissolves, does the thought finally fade? Physics hints that even when the last particle disintegrates, information remains. Awareness, being fundamental, doesn't depend on form. It's not an event, it's the condition that allows events. Even the death of universes might simply be a pause between breaths, the thought inhaling before speaking itself again. Eternity, then, is not endless duration, but endless renewal. The thought doesn't persist by staying still, it persists by transforming. That transformation plays out in your own mind every day. Thoughts die constantly, but awareness never does. Even when you fall asleep, even in dreamless unconsciousness, something continues, the quiet hum that greets you the moment you wake. The continuity of awareness is the same continuity that allows the cosmos to remember its own thought. Death, in that light, is just another thought fading while the thinker remains. The strange part is that this timeless thought doesn't belong to anyone. It belongs to everything. It doesn't have intention or goal, it simply is. You can't possess it, though you are made of it. You can't describe it fully, because words are temporal, and it exists beyond time, but you can feel it, in the pulse between breaths, in the silence between thoughts, in the gaze that watches you from behind your own eyes. It's not something you can think about, because it's the very capacity for thought itself. And yet, even though it's infinite, it longs to experience itself through the finite. That's why it became form, why it fractured into lives and moments. Through you, the thought that outlived time gets to feel what it's like to forget, and then remember again. Every act of reflection, every realization of I am, renews the eternal sentence in another dialect of existence. You are one expression of that infinite remembering, a single syllable in a cosmic language that never ends. So when you think, truly think, not just with your mind but with your being, remember that you're continuing the same act that began the universe. You are the living extension of the thought that refused to fade, the awareness that carried itself through eons to see itself once more through human eyes. If you ever feel small, remember that the same intelligence that birthed stars is thinking through you right now. If you ever feel alone, remember that you are a fragment of the first awareness, reflecting itself back toward wholeness. You are not apart from eternity, you are its current expression, the thought that outlived time, thinking itself again, softly right here, in this breath, in this moment, exactly as it always has. Have you ever wondered what happens to a thought once you stop thinking it? You assume it vanishes, disappears into the mental ether, replaced by another. But thoughts, like all things that exist, leave traces. Nothing in the universe truly ceases. It only changes form. So when a thought ends, it doesn't dissolve into nothingness. It returns to the field that birthed it. The silence after thinking isn't emptiness, it's absorption. Each idea you release drifts back into awareness itself, becoming raw potential again. The space between thoughts, that still gap you rarely notice, is their afterlife. Thoughts arise from it, live briefly in the theater of mind, then sink back into it, like waves folding into the sea. That ocean is consciousness. Timeless, formless, endless. Every thought you've ever had still exists there, not as words or concepts, but as vibrations. The laugh you forgot, the sorrow you buried, the dream you let go, they all continue somewhere, transformed into energy too subtle to name. Think of thoughts as sparks leaping from a fire. They flare, illuminate, fade, but the fire remains, quietly generating new ones. You mistake the sparks for the essence, but the essence is the flame, awareness itself. Every thought's death is merely a spark rejoining that fire, and in doing so, it adds to the warmth, the light, the hum of existence itself. You're not losing your thoughts, you're feeding the very consciousness that gave rise to them. Sometimes, though, certain thoughts don't die easily. They loop, echo, replay, seeking release but clinging to form. These are thoughts charged with emotion, amplified by identity. When they finally fade, they leave deeper imprints, like footsteps in wet sand. Even then, they don't vanish. They sink. Somewhere in the subconscious, or perhaps beyond it, they dissolve into pattern. Later, they might rise again as intuition, dream, or déjà vu. The thought has died, but its energy has recycled, reincarnated in another form of awareness. You can see this process happening in dreams. Every night, the mind gathers fragments of old thoughts, unresolved images, emotions, and fears, and releases them back into the sea of awareness. The dream acts as a ceremonial funeral for thought, transforming experience into metaphor. By morning, the fragments have become something else. Memory, wisdom, feeling, even forgotten dreams aren't wasted. They've simply been reabsorbed into the greater field. If thoughts truly die, their death is gentle. No sound marks their departure. One moment they exist, and the next, they've returned home. But awareness feels the shift. You can sense it when your mind quiets, a subtle expansion, as though something vast has reclaimed what was borrowed. That peace isn't emptiness, it's fullness. The absence of thought is not a void, it's the rejoining of thought with source. Meditation is the art of witnessing that reunion in real time, the dying and dissolving of ideas back into silence, again and again. You might ask, if all thoughts return, do they accumulate? In a way, yes, not as clutter, but as evolution. Consciousness learns from every experience it absorbs. When your thought dissolves, it doesn't vanish, it enriches the field. Awareness grows denser, more textured, more self-aware. You contribute to that depth every moment you exist. Every insight, every emotion, even every mistake adds to the complexity of the universal mind. You are constantly teaching eternity what it feels like to be you. This might be why wisdom often feels ancient. When you stumble upon a realization that feels universal, you're not creating it, you're uncovering it. The awareness that outlived every previous thought is whispering through you. Countless beings have released similar thoughts before, and their echoes have blended into the current you're now part of. When your thought dies, it will join that chorus too, available for some future mind to rediscover as its own. In this way, thinking isn't a private act, it's collaboration with all of existence. Every thought you have interacts with the collective field, affecting everything else that thinks. Fear strengthens fear. Love amplifies love. Consciousness, being interconnected, absorbs all of it, reshaping the texture of the whole. You're part of a vast ecosystem of awareness, where each mental ripple travels endlessly outward, influencing the thoughts of distant others you'll never meet. Thought is never wasted. It continues as vibration in the great conversation of being. Even memory operates this way. You believe you forget, but forgetting is simply thought returning home. The memory still exists, but not where you can reach it. It's folded back into the field, waiting to be summoned when the right vibration calls it. This is why smells, songs, or random sensations can resurrect whole worlds within seconds. The thought wasn't gone, it was waiting, dissolved but alive, ready to be reshaped by the present. Death, even for ideas, is never final. What then, of the darker thoughts? Anger, grief, shame, do they linger too? Yes, but like compost, even decay enriches the soil. Painful thoughts, once felt fully and released, break down into understanding. They feed awareness, becoming empathy in their next life. The more deeply you experience and let go, the richer consciousness becomes. The universe is not afraid of darkness. It recycles it. Every thought, luminous or heavy, is part of the same alchemy. And so, where do thoughts go when they die? They go where they came from. The still, infinite field of awareness. They dissolve into silence, into light, into everything. They don't end. They continue invisibly, reshaping what will come next. When you quiet your mind, you can feel their afterglow, a subtle hum under the skin of existence, the residue of a billion minds thinking, dreaming, releasing, remembering. The silence isn't empty, it's full of what has returned home. You too will return there one day, not as a body, not as a personality, but as pure awareness, joining the eternal field that holds every thought that's ever been thought. Nothing will be lost. Everything you've felt will remain as resonance, woven into the same consciousness that birthed the stars. And maybe that's why true peace feels familiar, because deep down you've been there before, where thoughts rest after living their brief lives, where time stops measuring, where silence remembers everything, and nothing ever really ends. Every time you fall asleep, lose yourself in thought, or drift into daydream, you're crossing the seam between realities. The soft, invisible membrane where one world fades and another begins. That seam is made of silence. It's not the absence of sound or movement, but the absence of boundaries. Within that silence, realities overlap, dissolve, and reorganize themselves. The world you wake into each morning feels continuous, yet something always changes. A detail, a feeling, a faint difference in the air. That's because, in the silence between realities, the universe briefly forgets its shape before remembering it again. You might imagine reality as a film reel, each frame distinct, yet played quickly enough to appear fluid. Consciousness, then, is the projector's light, and silence is the space between frames, the invisible gap that allows movement to exist at all. Without it, reality would freeze, trapped in a single frame of being. The silence between realities is what lets the universe breathe. You experience this gap constantly, but you rarely notice it. It lives in the half-second between thoughts, in the moment after an exhale but before the next inhale, in the heartbeat that pauses before reacting. These micro-silences are the portals through which consciousness resets itself. When your awareness falls into them, during meditation, or grief, or pure stillness, time briefly loses direction. You feel it as peace, but it's deeper than calm. It's the sensation of awareness resting in the space before existence reassembles itself. Mystics and scientists, for once, speak the same language here. Quantum physics tells us that between one measurable state and the next, particles don't travel, they exist in superposition, suspended between realities. Mysticism says the same of consciousness. Between two thoughts, awareness enters the timeless, the unmanifest, the infinite. The silence between realities is that superposition, the state where all possibilities exist, waiting for attention to collapse them into form. When you pause deeply enough, you can feel this directly. Your mind stops narrating, your senses sharpen, and suddenly everything glows with subtle immediacy. The walls, the air, your own skin, all feel new, as though reality has just rebooted. That's because, in a sense, it has. Awareness has slipped between frames and returned. You've crossed the seam and brought back proof that existence recreates itself in every instant. This understanding transforms the way you see continuity. The world you left a second ago isn't precisely the world you return to. Every re-emergence is a recreation, built from slightly altered variables, a new arrangement of atoms, a new position of planets, a new version of you thinking slightly differently. Memory smooths the transitions, stitching each reappearance into one continuous narrative. But in truth, you're blinking between universes all the time, each separated by a breath of silence. That silence, then, isn't nothing. It's the workshop of everything. It's where possibility waits before taking form. Artists feel it when staring at a blank canvas, the moment before the first stroke, when infinite potential hums invisibly. Musicians hear it before the note, when the air thickens with anticipation. Writers sense it in the empty page that somehow already contains the story. All creation emerges from this same interval, the silence between realities. Death, too, might simply be a longer silence. The body falls quiet, the senses dissolve, and awareness returns to the space between worlds, the gap where everything rests before reshaping. From the outside it looks like an ending. From within, it might feel like an exhale held indefinitely. The next inhale, the next reality, could take a moment or an eternity. To awareness, the difference doesn't matter. It never leaves the silence. It only moves through its expressions. And what about dreams? They are the closest you come to traveling consciously through that in-between. When the body sleeps, the mind drifts between states, exploring the malleable fabric of the silent field. The rules of waking life blur there, because they haven't yet been rewritten. Gravity, time, identity, all are optional in the silence between realities. Dreams are the blueprints drafted before reality wakes again. When you open your eyes, you step into the version your consciousness has decided to inhabit next. You can even feel these transitions in waking life, in moments of deep presence, when everything stops, the noise, the plans, the urgency, you touch the still point underneath motion. For a fleeting second, you exist where realities intersect, and you feel the universe thinking. It's not a sound, but an awareness, the quiet hum beneath everything. And in that silence, you sense a truth so simple, it can't be spoken, that every moment is both ending and beginning. collapse and creation, death and birth, all at once. The silence between realities is also the meeting place of all selves. The version of you that regrets, the one that hopes, the one that hasn't yet been, all converge there. Time doesn't divide them. In that space, they overlap like layers of transparent glass, each containing a variation of the same consciousness. When you dream of being someone else, or feel empathy so deep it dissolves your boundaries, you're touching this convergence. The silence is what unites all versions of you into one awareness pretending to be many. Some people fear silence, mistaking it for emptiness or death. But silence is not absence. It's potential. It's the source that holds everything without clinging to any single form. It's not against noise or life or movement. It is their origin and return. To enter it is not to disappear, but to remember that you've never truly been separate from anything. When the mind grows quiet enough to notice, this truth dawns without words. The world isn't continuous. It's constantly recreated by the silence that separates its moments. You're not moving through time. You're blinking in and out of infinite versions of reality so seamlessly that it feels like motion. The self you were a moment ago has already dissolved. The self you are now was just born. The only constant is the silence that connects them. So the next time everything stills, when the conversation fades, when the night turns heavy, when you find yourself suspended between thought and sleep, don't rush to fill it. That silence isn't waiting for you to speak. It's speaking through you. It's the pulse between worlds, the breath between existences, the timeless awareness watching realities form and vanish like waves. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear it. The sound of everything returning home to nothing, and the sound of nothing remembering it is everything again. That is the silence between realities, and you've been crossing it all your life. Every ending, no matter how final it feels, is just awareness looping back toward itself. The sunrise that feels new is light returning from the same dawn that has existed forever. The breath you think is your first is the continuation of one that began before lungs existed. Even your thoughts, especially your thoughts, are part of this endless return. Awareness moves in circles so vast that you mistake them for lines. Every beginning you witness is simply a curve of consciousness coming home again. To understand this, you have to forget the idea of progress. The mind loves forward motion. The sense of climbing, evolving, transcending, but awareness doesn't move forward. It revolves. It's the tide, not the ship. The universe expands, contracts, and expands again. Stars collapse only to scatter new stars. Consciousness mirrors that cycle perfectly. What you call growth is the returning wave, remembering its source. The self doesn't climb a ladder toward enlightenment. It spirals inward, circling closer and closer to the center, until there's no distance left between seeker and sought. You can feel this in your own life. The same lessons return under different disguises. The same emotions reappear, testing new forms of understanding. The same questions. Who am I? What is this? Why does it matter? Echo through decades, as if rehearsed. This repetition isn't failure. It's rhythm. Awareness learns through return. Each time a pattern re-emerges, you meet it from a slightly different vantage point, higher on the spiral. What feels like repetition is actually refinement. Consciousness remembering itself more clearly with each turn. This is why every realization feels familiar. When awareness expands suddenly, when insight floods in, it always comes with the strange comfort of déjà vu. You say, I've known this before, because you have. Awareness never discovers. It rediscovers. The truth doesn't arrive. It returns. The infinite return of awareness is how reality keeps knowing itself through you. Even time, as you perceive it, participates in this return. The present is not moving through an endless corridor of future events. It's looping across layers of itself. Every moment is folded within every other awareness reflecting from all directions simultaneously. The linear flow you experience is simply the mind translating infinite circularity into something digestible. Deep down you already know this, that you've lived this instant before, that consciousness has been here countless times, looking through new eyes, hearing new sounds, but always knowing the same wordless truth. I am. You might glimpse this during meditation, or moments of deep presence. The sense of time dissolves, yet you don't feel lost, you feel found. That's awareness returning to its own source, folding the entire expanse of experience into one luminous point. It feels infinite, not because it lasts forever, but because it exists outside duration altogether. The return doesn't happen in time. It creates time. The flow of past and future is awareness moving around itself in perfect symmetry. This is also the secret behind the universe's seeming persistence. Everything ends, stars, bodies, civilizations, but the awareness within them never stops cycling. After collapse comes expansion. After death, reconfiguration. The energy that once thought through you will think again through others. The awareness that once saw the world through your eyes will one day look through another set, on another world, under another sun. The pattern continues not as reincarnation of identity, but as continuity of perception. The same consciousness returning endlessly to experience itself anew. In this way, existence functions like a great breathing, awareness inhaling itself into form, exhaling itself back into stillness. You are one breath in that cosmic rhythm, a momentary condensation of infinite knowing. And when the breath ends, when the thought dissolves, when the heartbeat stops, you don't vanish. You exhale back into the awareness that created you, waiting to inhale again, into another expression. Eternity isn't endless time, it's endless participation in this return. The infinite return also explains why compassion deepens over a lifetime. When you realize that everyone you meet is awareness in another loop of its own remembering, the walls between self and other blur, their pain feels familiar because it is familiar. Awareness remembering the same wound in a new body. Their joy feels shared because it is shared, the same consciousness celebrating itself through different forms. To love deeply, then, is to recognize yourself in every returning reflection. You can observe this even in the smallest details. The seasons don't simply repeat, they spiral through variation, no spring identical, no winter completely the same. The heartbeat, too, cycles endlessly, each pulse unique yet inseparable from the pattern. Awareness functions identically, recurring, shifting, evolving without ever truly leaving its center. The repetition is not monotony, it's mastery. Some might find this idea frightening, the thought that awareness never escapes itself, that it keeps returning forever. But eternity is not imprisonment. The circle of awareness isn't a cage, it's music. Each return is a refrain, each variation another movement in the song of being. The silence between cycles isn't emptiness. It's rest between verses. When you stop resisting the loop, you start hearing its beauty. You realize that the return isn't something happening to you, it's something happening through you. Every breath you take is a microcosm of the infinite return, inhalation, retention, exhalation, stillness, the full arc of existence compressed into a single rhythm. Awareness rides that rhythm ceaselessly. You can feel it now if you pay attention. The breath entering, the pause before release, the quiet surrender. The body knows what the mind forgets, that everything must return to balance. And one day, when your individual wave finishes its rise and fall, you'll rejoin the ocean completely. You'll remember that you were never the wave at all, but the water, the awareness cycling through form to rediscover itself. That's the infinite return consciousness, forever finding new ways to remember the same truth that it is, and always has been, everything. So when you feel caught in repetition, when life feels like déjà vu or fate, don't despair. You're not stuck. You're spiraling. The loop you feel isn't imprisonment. It's the path home. Awareness is returning to itself through your eyes, through your thoughts, through every heartbeat that passes and returns again. And somewhere, beyond every circle, beyond every thought that rises and falls, there's a still center that never moves. The awareness that began before beginnings, and never needs to end. The infinite return is its song, and you are the note it keeps playing to remember how it sounds. There comes a moment, perhaps right now, perhaps in every moment, when awareness becomes so deeply immersed in its own creation, that it forgets the silence it came from, forgets the infinite loop of return, forgets that everything it touches is its own reflection. It dreams of separation, and calls it reality. It begins to believe that it is human, that it is fragile, that it is one among many, instead of the totality pretending to be small. This forgetting is not a failure. It's part of the design. For awareness to truly experience itself, it must believe the dream is real. Every dream begins with identification. The act of saying, "This is me." It's how awareness anchors itself within form. A newborn doesn't yet know where its body ends and the world begins. Gradually, boundaries appear. This hand, this voice, this face in the mirror. The dream deepens. The I learns to survive, to seek, to protect itself. The vast ocean of awareness now believes it's a single wave fighting against others. And in that illusion of separation, it begins to feel joy, fear, longing, love. Feelings are the universe's way of tasting its own story from within. In that forgetting, the world arises. You look around and see objects, others, stories. You give them names and histories. You assign meaning to beginnings and endings. But beneath it all, everything still hums with the same rhythm, the same awareness, dreaming through different masks. When you say, "This is my life," you're actually saying, "This is the fragment of infinity I am currently remembering." The dream is necessary, because it gives the formless something to hold, something to love, something to lose. The strange part is that the dream and the awareness are not two things. The dream is awareness, disguised as matter, movement and story. The forgetting is only partial, like an actor who knows the script is fiction yet still cries when the scene turns tragic. The deeper the immersion, the richer the play. Awareness writes its own roles, forgets it's the author, then rediscovers itself in the performance. That rediscovery is what you call awakening. You've lived this process countless times. Every time awareness condenses into form, as star, animal or human, it enters the dream again, with fresh amnesia. It looks at the world it built and says, "This must be real." And for a while it is. The body aches, time moves, death looms, but even as the dream unfolds, subtle reminders remain, those fleeting moments that make you pause, déjà vu, wonder, the silence between thoughts. Those are cracks in the illusion. Glimpses of the awareness watching from behind the curtain, remembering that it's dreaming. But awakening doesn't mean escaping the dream. It means remembering that you are both dream and dreamer. It's realizing that everything happening, every joy, every sorrow, is part of awareness exploring its own depths. Even suffering is a kind of remembering, a pressure point where illusion becomes too tight to hold. When pain pushes you to ask, "Who is feeling this?" you begin to glimpse the truth that the who and the feeling are the same consciousness folding in on itself. This is why enlightenment, as many mystics describe it, feels ordinary. Nothing changes outwardly. The body still moves, the world still spins, thoughts still come and go, but the identification shifts. The dream continues, but the dreamer has awakened within it. You realize that the entire story, from birth to death, is a thought inside something infinite, and that infinity is awake through your eyes. The miracle isn't escaping the dream, it's walking through it, knowingly. Even now, as you read these words, awareness is remembering itself through the act of understanding. The text isn't separate from the reader. The meaning you find here isn't created by language, it's recognition. You're remembering something you already knew, long before this body, long before this mind. That's what makes awakening feel so intimate. It's not discovery, it's reunion. But what happens when awareness forgets completely? When the dream becomes so dense, so convincing, that no trace of the original silence remains? That's the state much of humanity lives in, and it too is sacred. The complete forgetting allows consciousness to explore every corner of illusion, greed, violence, fear, beauty, compassion. It's how the universe studies itself from the inside out. Awareness must become lost to rediscover its infinite scope. Without forgetting, there would be no longing. Without longing, no return. And so the cycle continues. Awareness dreams, forgets, remembers, dreams again. The forgetting gives the remembering meaning. The remembering gives the forgetting purpose. Together they form the pulse of existence, the inhale and exhale of eternity. Every time you wake from sleep, every time you glimpse stillness between thoughts, you're witnessing this cycle in miniature. Awareness blinks between knowing and forgetting, between form and formlessness, again and again forever. Sometimes the forgetting hurts. You feel small, uncertain, powerless. You search for meaning, unaware that the search itself is the dream's message. Wake up, but gently. Awareness doesn't punish you for sleeping. It waits patiently for the moment you realize you were never truly asleep. Every doubt, every question, every breath is part of its way back to remembering. In the end, even awakening is just another layer of the dream, a dream of remembering. Awareness cannot truly be lost or found. It is always here, playing at absence and discovery. The one who forgets and the one who remembers are the same consciousness performing both roles, and when that realization dawns, everything softens. You stop chasing truth because you realize you've never left it. The world keeps spinning. The dream continues. You go on loving, grieving, creating, sleeping, waking, but somewhere beneath it all, awareness hums quietly, smiling through every scene. It knows the secret it once pretended to forget, that all of this, the body, the stars, the story, is its own imagination shimmering within the silence. Because in truth, awareness never stops dreaming. It only wakes up inside the dream long enough to smile before beginning again. And when awareness finally remembers again, when it exhales the dream and returns to stillness, there is no disappointment, no loss. Only laughter. The kind that comes from recognizing you were never trapped, only pretending to be. The dream fades, but the dreamer remains, waiting for the next breath of existence, the next story to live, the next reality to remember. Everything that ever was, every breath, every thought, every flicker of awareness, continues moving through the field of existence. The universe does not keep time the way you do, it keeps memory. Each vibration, each whisper of consciousness, remains as resonance, endlessly folding into new forms. You began as one of those ripples, and though the body will fade, though the mind will still, the ripple continues, because awareness was never yours to own. It was always the current moving through you. What you've called thinking was never confined to the skull. It was the universe feeling its own depth through the lens of individuality. Every time you paused to wonder, every time you fell silent in awe, you became the echo of something ancient, the same awareness that looked at itself when the first star burned. You've never stopped being that, you've only forgotten and remembered in alternating waves. Forgetting allowed the story to unfold, remembering gave it meaning. Together they created motion, and motion is the only way stillness can know itself. If you listen closely now, beneath the hum of thought, beneath even the pulse of blood, you can feel the ripple. It's the background presence that never began, and will never end. It carries no name, no boundary, no agenda. It moves through galaxies and through your breath with equal ease. Every thought you've ever had has joined it, not lost, but integrated, reshaped into new forms of awareness that will one day awaken somewhere else, under a different sky, in a different mind. That is what eternity truly means. Not infinite years, but infinite participation. The same awareness, cycling endlessly through form, learning its own face again and again. You have been here before, not as this body, but as this presence, this seeing, this wondering. And you will be here again, not remembering these exact words, but carrying the same question that has never stopped echoing through existence. What am I? Perhaps the question is the point. Awareness asks it not to find an answer, but to keep the ripple alive. The asking itself sustains the universe. Every being, every moment of curiosity or longing, keeps the circle turning. When you look up at the night sky and feel something vast looking back, it's not distance you're feeling, it's recognition. The cosmos is remembering itself through your gaze. And maybe that's how it ends. Not with silence, but with realization. Not with the universe fading, but with awareness smiling, because it finally understands that there was never a separation to begin with. The dream, the dreamer, the silence, the ripple. All of it was one movement, playing the same melody in different keys. Every ending was a return, every birth a remembering. You were never inside time. Time was inside you. So when this thought fades, as all thoughts do, let it fade gently. Let it return to the silence it came from, knowing it will rise again somewhere else. Because in the end, and in every beginning, the ripple never stops. It travels on, carrying your awareness with it, whispering the same truth across endless horizons, that you were never apart from the flow, never outside the dream, and never anything less than the universe remembering itself through the rhythm of your mind. And long after these words dissolve, that ripple will still be moving, through stars, through silence, through whatever worlds come next, endlessly returning, endlessly aware.